Hey guys, how are all of you beautiful people doing? Hope all of you are doing fine, and yes, this is the another amazing video of Reincarnated in Naruto. So without any delay, let's start the story. A warm breeze passed through the forest as the leaves and grass swayed in the wind. The sun had already begun to set when a dense cluster of bushes began to rustle, revealing a disheveled figure who dragged a dead body along behind him. How long has it been since Izaya used this marker of his? The bushes and grass have grown out of control in this area. Sasuke grumbled to himself as he pulled Danza's dead body out of the thick and entangled bushes. Sasuke bit his thumb and let some blood leak out before forming the hand signs of boar, dog, bird, monkey, ram, and said, summoning jutsu. A giant white cloud of smoke appeared and dissipated, revealing a giant brown hawk called Garuda. It gave a loud and proud screech before folding in its wings and bending down, allowing Sasuke to jump on its back with Danza's corpse. Not a moment later, Garuda spread its wings and flew into the air towards Konoha. Sasuke looked down from above as he saw the lush green color of the trees below. The blue cool rivers flowing throughout the land. The cool breeze high in the air and the gentle and warm feeling that the orange, yellow, and red-colored sun painted in the sky. His expression softened as he took everything in before him as one thought crossed his mind, so this is the land of fire. This is the territory of the hidden leaf. This is all a part of what Big Brother Itachi sacrificed his life for. It wasn't long until the village came into view. The signature image of the Hokage stone faces on the cliffside and the rapidly progressing reconstruction of the village's buildings after Pain's attack. After Garuda circled above in the air around the semi-constructed Hokage's building, it landed on the flat rooftop. He picked up Danza and went to Hiruzen's quarters. Tap. 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 Sasuke walked through the well-lit hallway that gave off a glow of warmth. He would have felt comfortable walking down the hallway if it wasn't filled with the strong scent of tobacco everywhere. The second he opened the door to Hiruzen's room, he heard him say, "Sasuke." Sasuke closed the door behind him as he carried Danza's lifeless corpse over his shoulder and saw Hiruzen's eyes widened in shock. Without caring for much else, Sasuke dropped Danza's body on the floor with a plop and said, "Danza's finally dead." Hiruzen let out a long sigh as he closed his eyes, lamenting Danza's fate. Even if he had agreed that Danza should be found and turned into Konoha dead or alive, he had, after all, grew up with Danza when they were young. No matter how dark and extreme Danza's actions were, he still lamented Danza's death in the end. Hiruzen opened his eyes and replied, "I see. Did Izaya return with you?" Sasuke shook his head and responded, "Izaya had something he needed to do, so he sent me ahead. He told me that if I was ready to transplant Itachi's eyes, then to speak to you." Hiruzen remained silent for a minute as he took in what Sasuke said and also took in the sight of Danza's lifeless corpse once more before saying, "Yes. Please allow me to take care of Danza's body first. I will then proceed to help you with transplanting Itachi's eyes. I've heard from Izaya already about the matter." Sasuke nodded. "Fine." Just as Sasuke was about to head out the door, he paused. "I've already learned the entire truth from Itachi. But, just once more, I need to hear it from someone else. Is it true, everything about Itachi? The coup d'etat? The massacre? Danza's order? My life being spared?" Hiruzen stared at Sasuke's back for a moment in silence before nodding his head and said with sorrow, "Yes. It is true." "I see," Sasuke said as he took a moment to commit to memory Hiruzen's affirmation of the truth before disappearing from Hiruzen's office. 888. Naruto walked through the Konoha cemetery as he stopped before Jiraiya's memorialized grave. He bent down and placed a bouquet of flowers next to it as he stood there in silence for a while before speaking. Jiraiya-sensei. I'm not too sure what I'm supposed to do now, but I won't stop searching for the answers. Old Toad Fugaseka said that you left everything to me. That you entrusted me with the things you weren't able to accomplish in this life. He said that you believed in me. I trained hard and learned how to use Sage Mode. Fugaseka said I was better at it than you since I don't look like a frog after. Naruto smiled as he recalled the things Fugaseka told him and recalled the face of his loving master. He then continued, I met Nagato. He said that he wanted to create the peace that you wanted for the world. However, I just couldn't come to accept his version of peace. I couldn't forgive him for what he did. To you, to Gaara, or the village. But you know, after hearing about his own life and how he lived, I think I can understand him too. Just like how I understood the loneliness that Sasuke and Gaara felt. I think I can understand some of Nagato's pain. Even if I can't forgive him for what he's done, I also can't bring myself to truly hate him. I thought I would hate him no matter what, but I know now that hating someone and not forgiving them are different. So even if I don't forgive him, I don't think I hate him. I just wished that I could have been able to help him get through all the pain and suffering he had to go through earlier. In the end, I couldn't stop Nagato. I didn't have an answer for him at all for how I would help bring peace to the world of Shinobi. It was actually Izaya who did everything. Izaya was able to stop Nagato. He was able to help Nagato face his pain and come to terms with what happened in his past. Izaya says that he doesn't think world peace exists. But he also said that he thinks finding world peace is a journey and that even if there isn't an answer for what world peace is, that doesn't mean that we should stop searching. After everything that happened, I haven't had a chance to properly thank Izaya. Sensei, in the past you would always talk to me about your search for peace and the hatred that has plagued the world of Shinobi. I never understood what you meant, and with you by my side I never thought that I would one day have to face these difficult topics by myself. I was confused because you suddenly left my life and all the hard problems of the world came knocking on my doorstep at the same time. I was frustrated and angry and sad and I wasn't sure if I would know how to keep moving forward. I faced Nagato and he confronted me on these hard problems of the world that I never even had the time to think about, nor did I ever think I'd have to think so hard about them before. Then Izaya came along and I think I finally understand. I finally had the time to think about everything that you taught me, Sensei. I've also had the time to come to terms with everything Nagato went through and why he chose the path he did. And I've also finally had the time to let everything that Izaya said sink into my mind. Jiraiya-sensei, since you and Nagato have entrusted me with your wills, then I will do my best to search for the answer to peace. I don't know why Izaya didn't tell anyone that it was him who convinced Nagato to revive all the villagers, and I can't believe I missed the best opportunity to tell everyone. I was still too stressed about the situation, I think, but I will never forget that Izaya was the one who not only helped Nagato, but he helped save the villagers and helped guide me. I'll come visit again in the future, Jiraiya-sensei. I will never give up and I will never go back on my word. That is my ninja way. Naruto bowed deeply to Jiraiya's grave before walking off as the sun had completely set at this moment. Poof! Naruto suddenly disappeared at this moment in a puff of white smoke as he was reversed summoned to Mount Myoboku. "Hey! Why am I here?" Naruto questioned aloud. "Ha ha ha, because I reversed summoned you." Fugaseka replied. Toad Gramps, did you need something from me? Naruto asked. Well, not me but the great Toad Elder. He said it is time to give you the 4th Hokage sealing formula key for the 9-tail seal and that he would like to speak to you. After that I'll send you back. Fugaseka said. Oh. All right, lead the way. 888. Tsunade sat in the semi-reconstructed Hokage's office as Nara Shikaku, Shitsune, the elders Koharu and Homura, and Kakashi sat around a table waiting to begin the 4th Great Ninja War Pre-Preparation Emergency Meeting. Tsunade clicked her tongue as she taped on the table and said, "TSK. Where the heck is old man Sarutobi?" Koharu had a pensive look on her face before responding, Now, there must be a good reason why he's late." Creak. At that moment the door to the meeting room opened, revealing Hiruzen, who walked in with an apologetic look on his face. Tsunade glared at him and said, "Old man, what were you doing?" "This is an emergency meeting about the 4th Great Ninja War." Hiruzen chuckled awkwardly. "Ha ha ha, well my legs don't move as fast as they used to." Tsunade glanced at Kakashi as she also recalled that Kakashi liked to give weird and random excuses for when he was late. Kakashi felt a drop of sweat drip down his forehead as he thought, "Isn't Lord Third the one who was late? Why is she glancing over at me?" Hiruzen took his seat at this moment and said, "All right. All joking aside, I had a matter that needed attending to. Sasuke has returned and brought back Danza's body." Everyone in the room was momentarily shocked before they recovered. "Danza is dead then?" Koharu and Homura said in disbelief and sorrow. "Yes." Hiruzen replied in lament. Shikaku, Kakashi, and Tsunade all had a look of indifference as she simply said, "I see." Shikaku and Kakashi didn't really care about Danza's death all that much. While they understood that Danza did the things he did to protect the leaf in his own way, albeit with an extreme manner, even still, there was a line that had to be drawn that shouldn't be crossed, and Danza had crossed that line, hence their lack of remorse for him. It was only Koharu, Homura, and Hiruzen who felt some sorrow for Danza's passing as they grew up with him. Tsunade noticed that the room was split between those who lamented Danza's fate and those who didn't care much, so she attempted to shift the topic away as she coughed and said, Izaya left with Sasuke. Did he return as well?" Hiruzen snapped out of his thoughts on Danza and replied, "No. Sasuke said that Izaya had something to do and so he has yet to return." "What? What could he possibly need to be doing right now? And we're about to go to war as well. What bad timing." Tsunade said as she let out a long sigh before continuing on, "Well, at least Sasuke is back." "That is good." Hiruzen rubbed the back of his neck and said, "Well, he is indeed back, but he won't be able to help out until his eyes have adjusted." Once again Tsunade was flustered. What do you mean by that, Sarutobi-sensei?" Hiruzen took out his pipe and smoked it quick. Now, calm down. This pertains to a secret of the Sharingan. Once one awakens the power of the Mangekyo Sharingan and uses that power, it will begin to cause their eyes to deteriorate and go blind. To avoid this problem, one can transplant the eyes of a close relative to avoid this side effect and gain something known as the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. It is a Mangekyo Sharingan that will not lose its sight. I helped Sasuke transplant Itachi's eyes. It will take a while for his eyes to evolve and adjust, therefore, Sasuke won't be able to help us in the war. At least not at the very beginning. It'd be better for him to awaken the eternal Mangekyo earlier and during the beginning of the war than to wait for his eyes to turn for the worse later during the war. I left a note on his bedside table for when he does awaken with details. Tsunade just let out another sigh and clicked her tongue. TSK. Not just Izaya but Sasuke as well. Both of their battle power is invaluable to Konoha. Truly bad timing. Very well, it can't be helped. Then let us get on with the preliminary meeting. First, we need to find Naruto and send him off to the designated hiding location that was discussed during the Kage Summit. We'll send Aoba, Guy, and Yamato as his guards and tell him that he's going on an S-rank mission. Shitsune, you'll be in charge of telling them. Yes. Shitsune replied. Tsunade then continued, after we send Naruto off I'll inform the village about the beginning of the Fourth Great Ninja War. We'll need a list of all capable and available shinobi in this village as well as stocking up and keeping an inventory on food and ninja tools. Hiruzen nodded in agreement. MN. Your plan is sound. MN. Koharu, Homura, Kakashi, Shikaku, and Shitsune also nodded in agreement. Oh, one more thing. Tsunade said. What is it? Hiruzen asked. The breakdown of the allied shinobi forces will be the commando division led by Kankuro of Tsunagakyo, logistics support and medical division led by Shitsune, the intelligence division led by Inoichi whom I will inform later. The sensor division led by Ao of Kirigakyo. The first division for mid-range combat led by Derue of Kumogakyo. The second division for short-range combat led by Kitsuchi of Iwagakyo. The third division led by Kakashi for short to mid-range combat. The fourth division for long-range combat led by Gaara who is also the regimental commander, and finally the fifth division which is a special battle division. Tsunade turned to face Hiruzen at this moment and said, Sarutobi-sensei, my Fune will be leading as captain for the 5th division. Its aim is to provide support to the other divisions. At first I thought that you might want to lead as the 3rd division captain but also thought that with your skills and expertise you may want to be a part of the 5th division's special battle. You would then be able to go and provide support to whichever division is in need. I wanted your opinion on this. Kakashi spoke up at this moment and said, Lord 5th, wouldn't it be best to let Lord 3rd be the captain of the 3rd division? Lord 3rd should have a position befitting of his title as a Hokage. Tsunade just looked at Kakashi for a second before laughing. Ha ha ha. Kakashi, you can't escape having some real responsibility forever. You have the skills, intelligence, and the right moral personality. You could be Hokage one day yourself. Eh? Please don't joke like that, Lord 5th. I'm not really the Hokage type. Kakashi replied. Hiruzen chimed in at this moment with a cheerful laughter. Ha ha ha. Kakashi, I agree with Tsunade. You may not realize it but if something were to ever happen to Tsunade or myself the one whom we always thought would replace us first was you. Kakashi remained silent as he simply accepted what Tsunade and Hiruzen said, but a thought crossed his mind and he replied, what about Izaya? After Kakashi spoke the room turned completely silent as everyone had actually started to deeply contemplate the notion of Izaya as a Hokage. Koharu and Homura were the first to break the silence as they said, Izaya. Isn't he still much too young? Also, he is currently absent during this time of great need. He would at least need to achieve some sort of merits before he could even be considered a candidate for Hokage. Tsunade chimed in next as she said, considering age, Gaara is about the same age as Izaya and he was able to become the Kazekage. Even though he is extremely young, he has been managing his village extremely well. Not only that, but despite his young age he has a Kij level battle power. I have no doubt about Izaya's battle power being at the Kij level. He was even able to assist us in utilizing the 4 red yang barrier technique to help protect the village against pain. In fact, as far as merits go, even though he isn't here right now, he has indeed earned enough of a reputation amongst the shinobi of Konoha to be recognized as extremely capable. He played a significant role in minimizing the damage to the leaf during Orochimaru's attack. He saved Lord Third from Orochimaru's entrapment. He completed extremely difficult ambu missions for the leaf. He recovered Itakai's body and brought back Sasuke to the village. He helped devise the strategy to corner and defeat Pain. He joined with Naruto to help convince Pain to revive the villagers that were killed during the attack. He helped speed up the process of rebuilding the foundations for Konoha after Pain's attack with his wood style. And now he was successful in hunting down Danzo with Sasuke, preventing a potentially huge scandal and underlying problem for the leaf. Especially since now we are about to go to war. Hiruzen nodded. MN. I agree with your assessment. Izaya has indeed achieved many great feats for the village. Whether or not he will be able to become a Hokage will be left to the future. However, it does not hurt to always have multiple capable candidates for the position of Hokage. Kakashi should remain as the captain of the 3rd division. This will allow him to gain even more recognition in the world of shinobi and create stronger bonds with other villages. Even though Izaya is not here with us currently, I have no doubt that he will join us as soon as he hears word of the 4th Great Ninja War. As for me, with my skills and experience in battle, I will join the 5th Division's Special Battle Unit. It will allow me more flexibility to aid those which need it most. With Hiruzen's comment bringing the topic back to the war, everyone pushed the topic of Hokage candidates to the back of their minds and refocused on what was currently important. Tsunade nodded at Hiruzen's logic about leaving Kakashi as the 3rd Division captain and having Hiruzen himself join the 5th Division. She then proceeded to say, is there no way we can somehow contact and inform Izaya of what has happened? A silence befell the room once more before Kakashi said, I think we just have to wait for him to return from whatever he left to do. Hopefully it shouldn't take that long. Hara, he should have left us with a way to contact him. What bad timing. Tsunade said with a long sigh. Everyone left the office as they finished up the meeting, whilst Tsunade sat in her chair staring at the beautiful luminescent moon that lit up the sky in a calming aura. 888. However, at this instant Kimimaro was having anything but a calm night. He groaned and frowned as he felt his entire body heat up and cool down repeatedly, causing him to feel a pulsing-like sensation throb all over him. What's happening to my body? He thought to himself as he continued to shift uncomfortably in his bed. He had passed down the basic Taijutsu foundations to Hanabi before he left with Tsunade and Kakashi for the 5 Kij Summit. When he returned, he trained as he normally did and helped guide Hanabi through some Taijutsu. She had improved rapidly and even showed him the special fighting style of the Hyuga clan. He had attempted to try it and even let Hanabi strike his Tenketsu points in his body so he could experience firsthand the ability of the technique. After having his Tenketsu points sealed, he continued training using his Taijutsu and attempted to use the 9 Dragons breathing method to see if it would work in unsealing his Tenketsu points. He had been able to develop the 9 Dragons breathing method up to the 7th breath so far, and when he circulated the technique after having his Tenketsu points sealed, he felt as if there was some sort of hidden reservoir of power deep within his body. With his Tenketsu points sealed, the 9 dragons breathing method had stimulated the hidden reservoir of power deep within him instead of unsealing the Tenketsu points. He felt an extreme burst of energy and power in that moment than he normally did when he used the 9 dragons breathing method in the past. He felt off after using the 9 dragons breathing method while his Tenketsus were sealed, so he had ended his training with Hanabi early and went home. He even stopped by the hospital to see if anything was wrong, but his results came back as normal. Now, however, for some reason his body continued its cycle of overly heating and rapidly cooling down, and he was starting to feel a sharp piercing pain in his head. His body ached. His bones ached. When even his bones ached, he knew something was definitely wrong. Thump. Kimimaro widened his eyes as they had a bloodshot look in them. He felt incredible pain at this moment and opened his mouth to let out a scream, but no sound came out. He wanted to head to Lord Fifth to see if she could diagnose him, but he couldn't even voluntarily move a finger. He could only squirm in pain and agony. He didn't know when, but at some point he ended up losing consciousness. Chirp, chirp, chirp. Ha! Kimimaro shouted as he sat up in his bed, panting heavily. He looked out the window to see some small birds chirping away as the sun streamed through into his room. He looked down at his hands to find nothing amiss. He turned and got off his bed to look in the mirror, but still, he seemed perfectly normal. Kimimaro flexed his muscles and stretched and moved around, but everything felt fine. In fact, he felt better than fine. He was confused because he was absolutely sure that he was in complete pain and agony just last night. Genjutsu. He whispered to himself before shaking his head and said, "No. Impossible. There's very few people in Konoha who'd be able to pull a genjutsu like that on me without me being able to break out, and those people who could wouldn't do it. There'd also be no benefit for them to attack me like that, and I'm certain it wasn't genjutsu. But what was it then?" He could only shake his head and put it to the back of his mind for now. As he walked out the door, unbeknownst to him or anyone else, a dark-colored bone stuck in the corner of the room slowly eroded away into nothing but ash and dust in the air, leaving no evidence that it was ever there save for the small puncture left in the wall. 888. Fwoosh. Large amounts of wind began to gather in the upper atmosphere as a whirlpool began to form on a large lake. Deep below the depths of that lake, well hidden from the touch of humanity, was an incredibly large palace. The Ryugajo Palace. Within the palace hall was Haku as he sat perfectly still, focusing with all of his might as he attempted to enter Heavenly Sage mode. He's still got a long way to go. Dako commented on the side in his cute little voice as he stared at Haku's 200th attempt at trying to become a Heavenly Sage. Maju gave a sideways glance at Dako, saying, "TSK. You're one to talk. How long did it take you again to finally learn Heavenly Sage mode? Oh, and even though you can use Heavenly Sage mode now, just how proficient at it are you, HMPF. I was just saying. No need to get so defensive for the kid." Dako replied. Nade ignored Dako and commented, "I'm impressed. This is only his 200th attempt, yet he can already create a pseudo-heavenly tribulation to appear. He's progressing quite well. Better than I had thought he would." At this moment Maju, Nade, and Dako widened their eyes in shock as they felt the descent of heavenly energy. However, it lasted for less than a fraction of a second before disappearing along with the pseudo-heavenly tribulation generated from Haku. Even though Haku failed in the end, Maju, Nade, and Dako still had their eyes wide open in shock because they truly felt the descent of heavenly energy. Haku collapsed on his back and lay on the cool palace floor as he panted heavily in complete exhaustion. It was also at this moment, deep within the core of the Ryugajo Palace, a giant blue golden-colored dragon that was coiled around itself opened up one of its eyes, illuminating the room with bright silver light. This was the true ruler and master of the Ryugajo Palace, the heavenly ocean sage Oya Tatsumi. The direction it was looking towards was at a young male lying on the floor of the Ryugajo Palace hall, panting and sweating with complete exhaustion. This one has some potential, Oya Tatsumi said to himself with a deep, powerful, and commanding voice before closing his eyes once more and returning to sleep with no one the wiser. After Haku caught his breath, he sat back up and saw the three palace guardians staring at him with their eyes wide in complete and utter shock. Haku remained silent as he waited for them to recover from their shock, but even after waiting for several minutes they didn't change their facial expression at all, so he tilted his head to the side in confusion and awkwardly said, Did I do something wrong?" Finally, after Haku spoke, the three guardians returned to their normal-looking selves, albeit with a bit of a complicated look in their eyes. Maju cleared his throat and said, No, not at all. In fact, you did something completely right." "I did," Haku replied suspiciously. Yes. The reason why we're so shocked is because just now we actually felt you become attuned to the energy of the heavens. It was short, so perhaps you didn't notice, but we did," Dako replied. I did," Haku said again, but this time more excitedly. He had been trying to absorb the energy of the heavens according to the methods taught to him by Maju, Dako, and Nade, but he hadn't succeeded at all in his past 200 attempts. At least until now, it seems. Absorbing heavenly energy was incredibly difficult compared to absorbing the natural energy of the world. To absorb natural energy, one needs to be completely still and be able to sense the natural energy in the world, absorb it, and balance it with their physical and spiritual energy. Too much natural energy could cause Haku to turn into a stone koi fish. Too little and he wouldn't be able to activate Sage Mode. Of course, Haku had already mastered this technique, hence the tattoos that mark his face when he activates Sage Mode as proof. According to Maju, once he completely masters Heavenly Sage Mode, the two koi fish tattoo mark on his forehead in regular Sage Mode will transform into one and become a dragon. But to absorb heavenly energy, not only did he need to remain completely still, he had to first absorb the natural energy of the world, then he had to balance that energy with his physical and spiritual energy. After that, he had to assimilate his physical, spiritual, and natural energy into one. This would allow him to incorporate the uniqueness of his own chakra signature into the natural energy he absorbed from the world. He then had to summon a heavenly tribulation which would baptize him in heavenly energy. To do that, he had to empty his mind of all thoughts and distractions and focus solely on the three energies within him that had been assimilated as one. It is because the natural energy of the world is formed from the energy of the heavens that natural energy has a unique imprint of heavenly energy at its origin. When this imprint of heavenly energy that is contained inside natural energy is mixed with a unique chakra signature of an individual and assimilated into one, it will call forth a heavenly tribulation, which is essentially heavenly energy, and baptize the person who mixed their three energies together in an attempt to purify those energies back into natural energy. It is at that moment that one would be able to sense the heavenly energy around them and take advantage of this tribulation of heavenly energy and absorb it into themselves. Instead of being destroyed and turning into pure natural energy by the tribulation, one would instead absorb as much heavenly energy as they could, temporarily turning the natural, spiritual, and physical energy inside of them into that of heavenly energy. Once all the other energies inside are temporarily turned into heavenly energy, the tribulation will cease to fall. One would then successfully have entered Heavenly Sage Mode. One of the great perks of Heavenly Sage Mode is that once someone uses up all the heavenly energy inside of them and releases Heavenly Sage Mode, all the energy they gathered inside of them that wasn't originally heavenly energy remains, such as physical, spiritual, and natural energy. This means that once Heavenly Sage Mode wears out, one can still remain in Sage Mode until Sage Mode wears out. Still, even though Haku learned the theory and the method from the three guardians, he continued to struggle with assimilating all three energies within him into one and calling forth the heavenly tribulation, but he was elated to hear the three guardians confirm that he was making great progress and even managed to call forth a heavenly tribulation, even if it was only for an incredibly short time. Chatter, chatter, chatter. Tap. Tap. Bump. Oi, watch where you're going. Hey, long time no see, how have you been? So the war will begin soon, huh? Hey, what division are you in? Countless voices could be heard at this moment as a gathering of approximately 80,000 shinobi and samurai mixed together, gearing up for war, standing by in their respective divisions. Haku roamed around for a bit until he saw Hanabi, Neji, Hinata, and Kimimaro about to get in line to obtain their new allied shinobi forces forehead protectors. Haku ran up to them waving his hands and said, "Hanabi, Neji, Hinata, Maro." They all turned to see Haku and waved back. Kimimaro spoke up first as he said, "Haku, how did your training at Ryugajo Palace go?" Haku rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. Maju says I'm making great progress, but I still have a long way to go. If Maju says so, then it must be true. Kimimaro replied. Hanabi tilted her head in confusion and asked, "Who's Maju?" "My summoning partner and friend." Haku replied with a smile. Neji listened to their conversation before finding an opening to join in the conversation and asked, "What division were you placed in, Haku?" "3rd Division under Kakashi-senpai. The short and mid-range battle unit." Hanabi nodded in approval. "That makes sense. To be part of that division you have to have abilities that allow you to move quickly in both short and mid-range combat, and that division is made up of shinobi who excel in agility and speed." Haku nodded as he looked at Hanabi with a bit of confusion. By the way, Hanabi, what are you doing here? Aren't you the next head of the Hyuga clan? I thought your father would protest to you being here." Hanabi was silent for a moment before glancing at Neji and Hinata, saying, "My elder sister Hinata and cousin Neji are heading to the battlefield. Why should I be the only one not joining? There are things precious to me that I also wish to protect. My family, my friends, my country, my home. I know everyone here is a capable shinobi, but I am as well. There's no reason for them to risk their lives for me when I am also capable of helping to defend our world. This is me taking fate into my own hands. I will protect the things precious to me with my own 2 fists. Besides, I'm not that much younger than you guys, and I'm also quite strong, you know." Kimimaro nodded his head and said, "It's true. She has improved rapidly and has become quite strong now. Although, I don't think Izaya would be very happy that you're going to the front lines." Neji commented next. "I don't know what kind of training you put my cousin through, but she has indeed become strong. Her strength is an asset to our division, and since this war concerns the fate of the world, the clan head Hayashi couldn't refuse her participation." Hinata looked around before saying, "Where's Izaya-kun?" Haku looked around confused as well. Big brother didn't come back yet. Does he not know that the war is about to begin? Hanabi's heart sped up as she was hoping to ask Haku if he heard from Izaya, but from what she just heard it seemed like even Haku didn't know where he went. Kimimaro noticed the distraught look on Hanabi's face, so he said, we don't need to worry about Izaya. Remember all those years ago in the Forest of Death during the Chunin exams? Haku and I were extremely worried for Izaya's safety, but in the end he returned to us. I'm sure he'll show up sooner or later. Haku had a worried and suspicious look on his face and replied, "True, but even if we don't need to worry about Big Brother, he's the kind of guy that does things that makes you worry about him. Who knows what sort of dangerous thing he's doing right now? Remember Maro, even though Big Brother came back to us during the Chunin exams, he had a broken arm and looked worse." Before Haku could finish, Kimimaro shook his head and hinted with his eyes that Hanabi was only getting more worried. Haku finally took note of Hanabi's expression and said, "Ahem. Well, Big Brother is the strongest person I know, so he'll be joining us in time." Everyone remained silent for a moment as Hanabi clutched the necklace Izaya gave her as she attempted to cheer herself up and said, "Amen. You're right. He's the type to just demand things of you and then disappear just as fast. But that means he'll also appear when you least expect it." Hinata held on to Hanabi's hand and squeezed it in a comforting manner. Next, the Shinobi handing out the allied Shinobi forces forehead protectors said. "That's us," Neji commented. Soon after they all received their forehead protectors as Haku asked, "So what unit are you guys in anyways?" Hanabi smirked and said, "Neji, Hinata, Maro, and I are all in the 2nd Division specializing in close combat." Haku widened his eyes and said, "Ee. All of you?" Kimimaro nodded his head, confirming what Hanabi said. "That's right, so Haku, take care of yourself and don't do anything reckless." With a defeated look on Haku's face he grumbled, "If only Big Brother were here, I'm sure he'd also be in my division." Everyone had finally received their allied Shinobi forces forehead protector and stood in their respective divisions as the captain of the 1st Division Derue, the captain of the 2nd Division Kitsuchi, the captain of the 3rd Division Kakashi, the captain of the 5th Division Mifune, and lastly the captain of the 4th Division and regimental commander of all divisions Gara stood forth in front of everyone, prompting loud cheers and battle cries to be heard. 888. Meanwhile in a dark cave stood two figures. They were Tobi and Kabuto. As Kabuto commented, "It's just about time to begin." "Indeed," Tobi replied as he stood there with a new mask with one Rinnegan and one Sharingan. Kabuto licked his lips and said, "It's too bad that Zabuza and Kai'Same failed to obtain the 8 tails on their 2nd attempt. Instead Zabuza was killed by the Raikage. Kai'Same ended up discovered on that giant island turtle that held Killer Bee and Naruto and committed suicide to prevent information leakage. But I suppose it wasn't all bad. Thanks to Zabuza and Kai'Same's efforts you were able to obtain a large piece of the 8 tails chakra, and I was able to capture Yamato and use his power to strengthen the White Zetsu army. HMPF. Their deaths don't mean much. Take these," Tobi replied. Kabuto looked at the 2 vials in Tobi's hands before asking suspiciously, "And what are these for?" Tobi looked at Kabuto indifferently. "There are too many variables in war. These 2 vials contain the blood of Zabuza and Kai'Same. I want you to revive them. I'll lend you 2 white Zetsus for the sacrifice." Kabuto furrowed his brow in wariness. "You could have given them to me earlier. I assume there is something you want." Tobi nodded. "Send Zabuza and Kai'Same to the place where we were going to station the Gold and Silver brothers Kinkaku and Jinkaku. I will use the chakra they absorbed from the 9 tails to help move along my plans." Kabuto frowned but shrugged his shoulders in the end and said, "All right. That should be fine." He took the vials containing Zabuza and Kaizame's blood and used 2 white zetsus for the sacrifice as he formed the signs of tiger, snake, dog, dragon and clapped his hands together saying, summoning jutsu reanimation. Flutters of dirt and white paper stuck onto the 2 zetsu sacrifices before revealing a reanimated Zabuza and Kaizame. Kabuto then said, now then, time to summon the others. He clapped his hands once more and said, summoning jutsu reanimation. The ground trembled slightly as many wooden coffins rose from the ground with the cover falling revealing many powerful shinobi. Kabuto smiled as he looked at all of his reanimated shinobi introducing some of them to Toby. First, the former members of the Akatsuki, not only Zabuza and Kaizame, but Itakai, Sasori, Dodara, Keikazu, Nagato, and Kanon. Toby glanced at Kabuto with narrowed eyes and said, when did you manage to obtain the DNA of Itakai? Kabuto smiled. During Sasuke and Itakai's battle. Itakai was injured in that fight and left quite a lot of his blood pooling around the area. With my skills, it isn't hard to extract his DNA. He then continued on. Next, the former Jinchuriki. The 2 tails Yujito, 3 tails Yagura, 4 tails Roshi, 5 tails Han, 6 tails Utakata, and 7 tails Fua. Next the former 5 Kage, the 2nd Sushikage Mu, the 3rd Reikage, the 4th Kazekage Rosa, and the 2nd Mitsukage Genjutsu. At this point Kabuto let out a small and sinister laugh as Toby's eyes widened in surprise before he narrowed his eyes and secretly glanced in wariness at Kabuto as he returned his attention to the coffin next to the 4 Kage Kabuto had revived. Toby continued to stare at that reanimated corpse for a few moments longer but elected not to say anything. Instead he secretly thought to himself, damn that Kabuto. He truly is a crafty bastard. Kabuto licked his lips as he also admired the shinobi resurrected in the coffin beside the 4 Kage. Kabuto fixed his glasses. Continuing on. There is also the explosion Keki Genkai Uzuguri, Hanza of the Salamander, Granny Kiyo of Tsunagakyo, the former 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist, Kono Hasdan, Hyuga Hisashi, and even Uchiha Kigami who was a former member under the 2nd Hokage and an old comrade of the 3rd Hokages. He also happens to be an old relative of Uchiha Shisei's. Other than the ones I've introduced there's also a whole host of other notable shinobi. Toby closed his eyes for a moment taking everything in before turning around and walking out saying, let's go. The 4th Great Ninja War begins. Kabuto licked his lips and gave a sinister smile under his hood as he thought to himself, with Toby's white Zetsu army and my reanimated shinobi we should be able to defeat the 5 great nations. In the end I'll secure the body of both Uchiha Sasuke and Karasuma Izaya. 888. Back to Izaya. A cold wind blew past my head as I trekked up a barren mountain landscape. My hair swaying in whichever direction the wind blew as a whistling sound hissed by my ears. The temperature was cold, but still manageable. It was rather the completely desolate scenery before me that oozed off dense murderous aura which creeped me out. Taking a moment to look all round me I thought, so this is the area of the murderous aura Danza's root found in the moon country. There certainly seems to be no life around. Even with my senses I'm picking up nothing but bloodlust and killing intent. It's so potent that it's messing up my sense of direction and sense of time. I'm honestly not even sure what day it is anymore or how long I've been on this island, but it couldn't have been more than a few days, I think. I quickly turned my head to the side of the mountain's peak as I sensed the densest amount of murderous aura coming from there. That must be the source of where all this murderous aura is coming from. It might also be the place where the weapon Danza was interested in currently is. I said to myself as I walked towards the cave entrance on the mountainside. I spread out and focused my senses as much as I could, but even then I picked up nothing but the aura of death. Seems really shady and probably a bad idea for me to go in it alone, but I've already come this far. I'll just check it out quick. I mumbled to myself as I narrowed my eyes and slowly and quietly walked inside. Dark and creepy, I noted as I continued to walk in further. I continued down the path until I finally reached a large cavity of the cave with a huge amount of open space with 3 dark tunnels around the sides. As I stood there in the large open cavern wondering which tunnel to enter, I felt a sense of danger descend upon my neck, prompting me to dash forward in a roll at my fastest speed before spinning around to face my attacker. The second I turned around to see who attacked me, my eyes widened in shock as I stared at the monster before me. Standing before me was a large 3-meter-tall Tengu with a long nose and grey hair with a long grey beard. Its eyes were completely bloodshot red and its wings were worn and tattered. It was covered in blood stains and had sharp fangs and claws as a dense, thick aura of death emanated from its body. However, what shocked me the most was the sheathed weapon by its side that seemed to be the source of all the aura of death and murder in the area. I narrowed my eyes in wariness. I didn't even sense its presence until right at the last moment. In fact, as I focused my senses at this moment, I couldn't even tell if it was right in front of me. I could only sense the aura of death all around me. It was as if this being had merged as one with death and escaped all manners of detection. The only thing that helped me make out its form and whereabouts was my Sharingan. A drop of cold sweat rolled off my forehead as I unraveled my blindfold to reveal my Mangekyo Sharingan as I stared at this monster of a Tengu. With the Sharingan, I noted that the chakra of this monster in front of me was no less than that of a tailed beast's. I dropped my blindfold on the floor and said, "You must be Sujobo, the last remaining member of the 5 ancient Tengu. And that blade in your hand must be the weapon you used to kill the other 4. It stared at me with its bloodshot eyes as dark pulsing veins emerged all over its body, and it spoke in a voice that echoed itself, that sounded both sinister and dark. Ha ha ha. Sujobo. No, Sujobo is no more. While this body once belonged to him, I had destroyed his spirit long ago. I am Muramasa." I widened my eyes in alarm and said, "What do you mean?" Muramasa smiled and stuck out the sheathed katana in its hand, saying, "I am this weapon, and this weapon is I. I am the spirit weapon Muramasa." This fool Sujobo sought power, and like the idiot he became easily swayed by my words. Over time I was able to weaken his mind and eventually consume his spirit, taking his body for myself. It is my vessel now. The more I kill, the more powerful I become. It is a bit cumbersome to kill small fry and also incredibly boring to do so, hence I have searched for strong individuals to kill and absorb their power. It is faster and more efficient that way. I sense that you have a formidable amount of power in you. You'll make a perfect sacrificial lamb." I frowned and furrowed my brow, not letting down my guard. "So that is why you killed the other ancient Tengus. You seem quite confident in being able to kill me." Muramasa smiled sinisterly and almost playfully. "There has yet to be an individual capable of escaping me." I scowled and attempted to fly out of the moon country, only to widen my eyes in shock as I exclaimed to myself, "Impossible. I can't teleport out of the moon country. What is this place?" Muramasa smirked as he noticed that I had attempted to do something and said, "I told you that you can't escape. My aura is all around us. I have had a long time to set this place up and erect an incredibly powerful barrier with many powerful seals. It is easy to enter, but not so easy to leave. The barrier and seals create powerful temporal distortions in space and time. None of my prey will be allowed to escape. You won't be able to undo my barrier and seals that took me 5 years to create. Give up and accept your death. I gritted my teeth and pulled out a special kunai as I prepared for a grueling fight. Guess I'll just have to kill you first. Muramasa laughed as he unsheathed his katana, which released a boundless amount of sharp killing aura, causing me to involuntarily shiver. Muramasa stared at me with great interest, like a predator staking claim on its prey. Very good, very good. Those with weak wills and weak minds are easily consumed and killed just from the unsheathing of the blade, but you survived and remain intact with even the will left to fight. I have now drawn the blade. It cannot be sheathed until it has killed. That means you must die. Muramasa charged forth at me with an incredible speed. His katana slashed down as I attempted to deflect his blade with my special kunai, only to widen my eyes in shock at what happened next. Muramasa's katana sliced through my special kunai like it was cutting butter. Just before it could cut my right arm, I focused my left Mangekyo Sharingan on the blade and activated the technique Kunin Otakotakai, making the katana incredibly small. So small that it was no longer long enough to reach my body, which allowed me to jump back and distance myself from Muramasa. I let out a deep breath as my back was drenched in cold sweat and a bit of fear from our first initial exchange. Muramasa, on the other hand, was also just as surprised that I had actually managed to escape his reach. Soon after, his katana returned to its normal size. What an interesting ability you have, Muramasa commented as he licked his lips in anticipation. I, however, wasn't thrilled as I thought, this doesn't look good for me. I took out another special kunai and threw it at Muramasa and said, Kunai Shadow Clone Jutsu. More than 1,000 special kunai flew out towards Muramasa, who smiled and expertly swung his katana, deflecting and slicing through the ones flying towards his body. I used this moment to create a Taiyogan in my right hand and flew next to a kunai on the ground by Muramasa as I thrust out my attack at his side. Just as my attack was going to reach him, he raised his katana just in time to block with the flat of his blade. As the golden sun sphere and the murderous blade came in contact, a loud screeching sound emanated from the katana before both Muramasa and I were thrusted through the air from the recoil. I did a backflip in the air to steady myself before landing back on the ground, while Muramasa spun once and steadied himself. I didn't even have time to let out a sound as I realized something was wrong and ducked down as the whistling of the wind flew past my head. I dashed to the side and rolled on the ground before steadying myself once more and saw another Muramasa where I was at previously. I turned and saw the Muramasa I was fighting earlier dissipate into nothing but murderous aura and energy. Some sort of clone technique, I said as I narrowed my eyes. Correct, Muramasa replied before dashing out once more at me. I quickly dodged his blade and blocked one of his kicks before backflipping away from him. Muramasa followed my movements and appeared behind me as he stabbed at my chest. I quickly flew to one of my kunai lying around and avoided his attack. I placed my hand in the tiger sign and said, Fire style art of the dragon flame jutsu. Several large flame bullets in the shape of a dragon flew out towards Muramasa, only for him to cut through each one with his katana as he rushed at me. I narrowed my eyes as I thought, my weapons are no good, neither is ninjutsu, I'll try taijutsu. I dodged a sword strike from him, and just as Muramasa's katana was about to slash my left arm, I activated my Mangekyo and shrunk his sword size once more, preventing his blade from reaching me. I took this opportunity to grab his arm holding his blade and said, Wushu style southern movement taming tiger. My hands glowed in a silver light as I grappled his wrist and broke it, prompting him to drop his katana. I kicked his katana out of the way and broke his arm next before saying Wushu-style southern movement floundering fish. I held on to his arm, marking him with my flying thunder god seal, and flung him on the ground multiple times before throwing him in the air and appearing by his side once more saying, Wushu-style 8 extreme fists 8th fist of moving. My right arm glowed in a bright golden light as I struck Muramasa right in the face, sending him flying through the air and crashing into the wall of the cavern, causing cracks to appear. In the next instant I appeared in front of him and said, 7th fist of splitting. The golden light from my right arm shifted to my left arm as I struck Muramasa right in the chest, causing the cavern wall to completely shatter, sending Muramasa flying into another large cavern hall. Once again I appeared in front of Muramasa and said, 6th fist of elevation. The golden light shifted once more from my left arm to my right arm as I struck him in the chin, sending him flying and crashing into the ceiling of the large cavern hall. I let out a deep breath as I stared at Muramasa and thought, after these many years Maro and I have been able to perfect the 8th, 7th, 6th, and 5th fists of the 8 extreme fists. Maro might have perfected even more of the 8 extreme fists by now though. I can use up to the 6th without incurring any major injuries. If I go further than that, however, then I'd end up like I did in the Chunin exams. Muramasa lay stuck on the ceiling as his body was horribly maimed and bloody. However, I heard his sinister laugh at that moment. He. Ha 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 ha. Wonderful. Wonderful. Your power is indeed something incredible. I want it. I need it. Your energy will probably be the most delicious energy I will taste thus far. Muramasa exclaimed in excitement. I widened my eyes at the next moment as I noticed a dark aura appear by his hand before stabilizing and revealing his katana. He can materialize his katana next to him even if it is removed from his hands. I mentally exclaimed and noted. Once again I was shocked at what I saw next as Muramasa began healing rapidly after he gripped his katana and looked as if he incurred no damage at all. Not only that, the flying thunder god mark I left on his body was corroded away by the dark aura around him. I quickly focused my eyes on him and said, Amaterasu. Kunino Takotakai. Immediately a large black flame condensed into a thin straight line and pierced into Muramasa's body, lighting him ablaze and puncturing a large hole in his chest. I, however, only felt cold sweat drip down my back as I witnessed the dark aura around Muramasa wrap itself around the black flames of Amaterasu and push it off of his body before he rapidly healed the hole in his chest like nothing. I frowned, thinking to myself, not even the inextinguishable flames of Amaterasu will work. Muramasa slowly floated back down to the ground at this moment as he stared at me. You are the only one able to damage me to this extent so far. You should be proud of yourself. However, no more playing games. In the blink of an eye he faded into the darkness and reappeared next to me as he slashed his katana towards my neck. I quickly flew to one of my many kunai in the previous cavern hall and avoided his strike, only to find myself in a room full of more than 100 Muramasa clones. Just as they all rushed me, blood dripped down from both of my eyes as I said, Susanoo. Boom. A large black skeletal frame surrounding my body as 4 black arms swept outwards, destroying more than half of the Muramasa clones. Soon after, a black chakra cloak covered the Susanoo as it stabilized its form. Muramasa stood by the broken cavern wall and smirked, saying, Impressive. You don't cease to continue amazing me, but every move you make only makes me crave your energy more. He dashed forwards and slashed with his katana, prompting me to block it with a black Susanoo blade. Clink. Muramasa's katana and my Susanu's blade clashed with one another, but what happened next left me completely baffled and astonished. The blade of my Susanu was cracking and then broke in less than 5 seconds of contact with Muramasa's katana. I used one of my Susanu's arms and threw a punch at Muramasa, forcing him to block with one of his arms, sending him flying to the side a few dozens of meters away. The leftover Muramasa clones jumped at me, obscuring my vision, prompting me to quickly weave my hands in the tiger, snake sign and said, wood-style deep forest emergence. Large thick branches and trees arose out of the ground around me and blocked the Muramasa clones while also crushing, strangling, and entangling them. I jumped up on a high branch, cloaking myself in my Susanu for protection before clapping my hands, saying, water-style water shockwave jutsu. All the moisture in the surrounding area condensed and flooded the cavern below, as well as covering all the clones. I then quickly weaved the signs of tiger, snake, tiger, bird, tiger, ram and said, lightning-style thunderbolt jutsu. Large bolts of blue lightning shot forth from my hands and struck all the water around me, effectively shocking and destroying all the Muramasa clones. At this moment the real Muramasa appeared behind me and unleashed some sort of dark aura that enhanced his physical power, allowing his katana to pierce through the armor of my Susanu. Right before it was about to pierce my chest, I flew to another kunai in the room. To my shock, Muramasa was able to detect where I flew to and threw his katana at me. I instantly flew to another kunai, only to be met with another Muramasa clone lying in wait. I activated my Taiyogan and pierced through the chest of the clone, killing it, only for it to burst into a dark light that rushed outwards in every direction. This prompted me to fly to another kunai, but not before I felt a piercing pain in my right eye and the warmth of blood seeping down my face. I started breathing heavily as I continued to pant while clutching my right eye and frowned, thinking to myself, this isn't good. He managed to destroy my right main Gekyo Sharingan by catching me off guard with a strange attack of his. His clone burst into dark light that was actually some sort of needles formed from his dark chakra. Also, in this area he's able to detect the fluctuations of my chakra and respond immediately to where I'll teleport. I've used many techniques, strategies, and trump cards trying to ascertain his weaknesses, but the cost has been quite high. He has an enormous amount of chakra and can detect me through the murderous aura surrounding us. It might be some sort of unique barrier technique for detection that only he can use. He can cut through ninjutsu, has incredible self-regeneration skills, create clones of himself, and summon his blade to him even if he's separated from it. Not only that, he can fade into the darkness and reappear, which I reckon is another technique unique to him. He's the most formidable foe I've had to face thus far. His blade is also unfathomable. He said it's a spirit weapon and it's apparently sharp enough to cut through even my Susanu. Think Izaya, think, I told myself as I summarized everything I knew and discovered about Muramasa. Swish. I backflipped and dodged a sword strike from Muramasa before dodging to the side and grabbed his left arm. Before I could break his arm, he kicked with his right leg, prompting me to block with my left leg. We exchanged hundreds of close combat taijutsu as he sliced, thrusted, swept, kicked, scraped, clawed, blocked, dodged, elbowed, swung, pierced, deflected, stabbed, and guarded. I countered him blow for blow as I too dodged, deflected, guarded, kicked, blocked, thrusted, struck, punched, swept, ducked, swung, elbowed, twisted, grappled, sidestepped, and roundhouse kicked. We both backflipped and distanced ourselves from the other as I thought. I was able to injure him with taijutsu before, and he only healed his injuries when his katana returned to him. He also only cut through my ninjutsu using his katana, which means I need to separate him and his blade before trying to kill him. I quickly formed the snake sign and said, wood-style silent strangle jutsu. A thick vine quickly appeared beneath Muramasa and entangled him. I then quickly formed the sign of ox, hare, monkey and said, Chidori sharp spear. I molded the Chidori in my hand to extend outwards and stab towards Muramasa, attempting to cut off the arm holding his katana. However, the dark aura around him corroded the wood wrapped around him, letting him shift his katana to block my attack. I quickly focused my main Gekyo on his katana and said, Kunin no Takotakai. His katana shrunk at that moment, failing to block my Chidori as it pierced into his arm. I swung my Chidori spear, successfully slicing off his arm. My heartbeat quickened as I mentally exclaimed, success. I quickly formed a Taiyugan in my right hand and flew to a special kunai that was close to Muramasa's position and then rushed towards him as fast as I could and thrusted my attack right at his chest. However, before my attack could reach him, the fallen katana materialized in Muramasa's good hand as he stabbed it towards my chest. Forced to disengage, I flew to a kunai in the distance and glared at Muramasa with my only eye left as I huffed and panted, trying to catch my breath. Muramasa had already regrew his arm as he smirked, and our battle ensued once more. Rumble, rumble, rumble. At this moment 80,000 shinobi and samurai had run off from the allied shinobi forces headquarters, following their respective captains to the battlefield. All 5 regiments separated from each other to reach their designated locations. The 2nd Division under Captain Kitsuchi were just about to settle down at their designated location when they received word from HQ about an army of white Zetsu moving underground. Kitsuchi frowned as he looked at his daughter and said, Oi, Kurotsuchi. Did HQ predict the underground route that Zetsu is taking? Kurotsuchi nodded. Dad, HQ said that they're marching about a mile out west of our location. Shouldn't we do something about this? MN. Kurotsuchi, follow me. We're going to unearth them and take them head on. Kitsuchi turned to the rest of his division as he gave out his command. All members of the 2nd Division, listen to me. We just received word that an army of white Zetsu is moving underground a mile west from here. Kurotsuchi and I will go unearth the enemy. I want all of you to group up in at least a pair of 2 or 3. No more than 4 in a group, so as to maximize your fighting potential without hindering each other. Understood? Everyone in the 2nd Division saluted as they shouted, Yes, Captain. Kitsuchi nodded in approval as he turned to his daughter. Let's go. Swish. Just as Kitsuchi and Kurotsuchi left to unearth the enemy, everyone else began to group up. Hinata and Neji immediately paired up as Kimimaro walked over to Hanabi and said, Hanabi, since Izaya isn't here, it is my job to make sure that you're safe. If something happens to you, I'm not sure what crazy thing Izaya might decide to do. Hanabi smiled at the sentiment that Izaya would care enough about her to do something crazy should anything happen, but erased that thought immediately before replying, Okay Maro, let's pair up. But not because I need your protection. Rather, it's because you and I have trained and know each other's fighting style. Don't keep looking down on me just because I'm a girl and a bit younger than you. Boom. It was at that moment a huge volcano-shaped rock formation appeared, spitting out thousands upon thousands of white Zetsus from the top. Everyone then heard Kitsuchi's loud voice, attack. Ah! Everyone in the 2nd Division screamed a loud battle cry as they charged forward into the midst of the white Zetsu army. Bang! Boom! Bang! The sound of battle raged all around as the army of white Zetsu was being decimated in the initial clash. Hanabi activated her Bakugan and dodged the ambush of two Zetsus before shouting, 8 trigrams vacuum palm. She thrust out both her palms, causing powerful air waves to smash into the Zetsus, killing them as they crashed into the forest trees. Near her location was Kimimro with sharp bones protruding out from his hands as he expertly slashed and swung his weapon, decapitating the heads from several Zetsus. Just as he turned around to check on Hanabi, a giant mutated version of multiple Zetsus together appeared and smashed its fist downwards at his head. Kimimro merely scoffed as several large bone protrusions emerged from his shoulder and shot forth in an attempt to stab and lock this Zetsu in place. However, before his bones could make contact with Zetsu's fist, he heard Hanabi yell out, "Lightning style falling thunder." A miniature dark storm cloud appeared above the mutated Zetsu and released a series of large lightning bolts, stunning and eventually killing it. The mutated Zetsu finally collapsed on the ground, revealing Hanabi a few feet away as Kimimro stood in the same spot with large bones still protruding out from his shoulder while he stared at Hanabi. "I had that under control, you know." Hanabi smirked. "I know." She then turned to engage in another fight against several other Zetsus, leaving Kimimro confused as he stood there thinking, "Izaya, please come back soon. I think you're the only one who knows how to deal with her playful nature." 888. At this time the 3rd Division under Kakashi stopped near their designated location near a forest edge by the border of the Land of Frost when they spotted a red signal flare in the air from a few team members of the commando unit. Kakashi furrowed his brow as he had everyone prepare for battle. Haku, who was also in this division, took note of the commando unit falling out of the sky and said, "Kakashi-senpai, the commando unit is under attack." Kakashi also took note of this as he quickly gave his orders. "Haku, Guy, follow me. Everyone else prepare your stations for battle." Kakashi, Guy, and Haku dashed on the other side of the forest to see a clearing where Sai and 2 other members of his team had fallen. Just as they were about to be attacked by 3 reanimated shinobi, Kakashi, Guy, and Haku intercepted. Cling. 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 After their initial clash, they each stood on opposite sides of each other. Kakashi quickly said, "Sai, you and the other members of the commando unit retreat behind the forest to the rest of the 3rd Division. We'll cover your retreat. Also, start preparing the materials you need to seal the reanimated shinobi." "Yes." Sai replied as he and the other members of his team began retreating. At this moment the only female reanimated shinobi stepped forward and said, "Apologies, but it appears our bodies have been programmed to do whatever it takes to kill the opponents." 3 orbs of fire appeared around her as she prepared to attack. Guy immediately frowned as he could feel the incredible heat of balls of fire from where he stood. "Kakashi, this doesn't look good," he said with a frown. "She's the Keki Genkai user of the Scorch style, Pakyora from Tsunagakyo," Kakashi said as he narrowed his eyes in wariness. He then looked at the other 2 reanimated shinobi and said, "The other 2 Ugari, a Keki Genkai user of the explosion style from Iwagakyo, and the 3rd is Hozuki Maingetsu, a member of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist." Just as Kakashi finished his observation, Pakyora shot forth all 3 of her scorching fireballs, prompting Haku to respond by weaving the hand signs of tiger, snake, rat, snake, tiger at a speed that one wouldn't be able to see without a special dojutsu, and said, "Water-style water wall jutsu." A powerful blast of water gushed forth from Haku's mouth and intercepted Pakyora's attack, causing her scorching balls of fire to turn into steam before it could reach its targets. Maingetsu stuck his finger out and said, "Water gun." A droplet of water shot forth from his finger with incredible force and pierced through the veil of the water, cutting right through Haku's body, only for it to turn into a water clone as the real Haku appeared in the air above Kakashi and Guy. Haku formed the hand sign seal of confrontation and said, "Secret art, 1,000 flying water needles of death." All the water that was created earlier turned into sharp needles that flew towards the reanimated shinobi. They all quickly retreated as Pakura shielded herself with her scorch style. Guri used his explosion style on the ground to kick up a bunch of debris and dirt to intercept the water needles, and Maingetsu liquefied his body, letting the needles pierce straight through him. "Retreat!" Kakashi ordered as he, Guy, and Haku dashed back to the rest of the 3rd Division. The reanimated shinobi followed suit. Kakashi lifted his forehead protector, revealing his Sharingan, and said, "Everyone, be careful." Maingetsu formed the signs of ox, snake, ram and said, "Ninja art, hidden mist jutsu." A thick fog immediately followed suit, alarming Kakashi as he realized what Maingetsu was trying to do. "Everyone, beware of the silent killing technique," Kakashi reminded as he had the people group up in pairs of 4. It wasn't long after that sounds of screaming were heard as people started dying. Haku quickly dashed forth and threw 3 senbon needles at the spot where he heard a loud blast and scream, only for his senbon needles to be deflected. He charged towards that area and engaged Guri of the explosion style in fierce combat. Boom! Bang! Haku continued to dodge, being careful not to make any kind of physical contact with Guri's body in order to avoid being blown up. He formed the tiger hand sign, saying, "Ice-style swallow snowstorm jutsu." Icy swallows flew straight at Guri, who simply started punching outwards at each icy swallow flying at him, blowing them up upon contact. With Guri successfully distracted, Haku placed his hands on the ground and shouted, "Ice-style shattering ice spear jutsu." With no chance at all, Guri was immediately impaled by several large spikes of ice, causing his body to stop moving in an attempt to repair itself. Haku immediately placed his hands together and said, "Ice-style ice prison jutsu." The ice spears that pierced Guri's body immediately formed a block of ice that froze him in place, preventing any paper and dirt to reattach themselves to his tattered form. A member of the sealing team quickly rushed over and successfully sealed away Guri. At this moment Maingetsu was engaged in a fight with Kakashi as they both exchanged several taijutsu moves. Ting! Cling! Clank! Zing! Bang! Boom! Just as Kakashi successfully thrust his Reikiri into Maingetsu's body, it disintegrated into a water clone as the real Maingetsu appeared in the distance. Maingetsu quickly formed the signs of boar, dog, bird, monkey, ram and said, "Summoning jutsu." Kakashi widened his eyes in surprise and wariness as 6 wooden coffins appeared, revealing 6 reanimated corpses. Who are they? Someone from the 3rd Division asked. Kakashi narrowed his eyes, staring at the reanimated corpses. They are the former 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist. Akibino Jinzo, Kuriare Kushimru, Kurojuki Reiga, Munashi Jinpashi, Amayori Ringo, and Sukazan Fuguki. Another member of the 3rd Division stepped forward and said, "Even if they are the former 7, their power is at least halved without their swords." Kakashi shook his head in disagreement, saying, "It appears they brought their swords with them." Maingetsu unraveled a scroll as 4 swords were summoned from it, revealing the Kabutawari, a giant hammer attached to an axe-like blade, the Kiba, 2 slim blades with sharp prongs protruding from it, the new Ibari, a thin long sword resembling a needle with a thin line attached to the hilt, and the Shibuki, a giant sword with a bunch of explosive tags attached on one end. The mist became even thicker at this moment as explosions and screams could be heard from Pakura's continued assault. With 7 of the ninja swordsmen, the casualties will increase. They are all masters of the silent killing technique. Guy commented. We just have to be on our toes. Kakashi replied. Swish. Haku returned to Kakashi's side at this moment and said, Kakashi-senpai, with those guys reanimated we'll incur too many casualties with the mist. I'll dispel it. Kakashi nodded. I was just thinking of a plan to do that. If you've got one, let me hear it. MN. I'll enter Sage mode and use a Sage-powered wind-style jutsu to dispel all of the mist in the area. I just need you guys to buy me a few minutes. All right. Kakashi agreed as he and Guy guarded Haku. He sat perfectly still in their encirclement, sensing and absorbing the natural energy around him. Screams, shouts, and explosions continued to be heard all around until finally a few minutes later the wave and koi fish tattoo marks as well as the blue coloration around Haku's eyes appeared as he successfully entered Sage mode. He opened his eyes and stood up, clapping his hands together and said, Sage Art Wind Style Passing Typhoon Jutsu. Whoosh. A large windstorm erupted from the battlefield and in less than a few seconds, cleared up the atmosphere, dispelling the thick mist. Haku silently nodded in approval as he thought back to the time when he witnessed Hiruzen-sensei use this exact technique to get rid of his own hidden mist jutsu during their training sessions all those years ago. The mist here is much more wide-scale and so it requires more power to dispel, hence me having to enter Sage mode, Haku mentally noted. All right. Engage. Kakashi shouted as everyone spread out in teams to fend off the enemy. Rumble. At this moment there were 2 more wooden coffins that appeared behind a cluster of trees. As the covers fell down, it revealed a figure clad in an all-green jumpsuit and a figure clad in the Konoha standard Jonin flak jacket. The man in all green looked around him in great confusion before seeing another person beside him and asked, where are we? The figure in the Jonin attire looked over at the voice that spoke and commented, You. Aren't you Might Dewey? Ha ha ha. I'm embarrassed to say so, but yes, that is me. The Eternal Genin. So, do you know what's happening? As that figure looked down at his hands and noticed the slight cracks in his skin, he commented, This is the reanimation jutsu. Might Dewey widened his eyes in shock at the revelation that he had become a reanimated shinobi, while the person next to him looked up and activated the Sharingan. The sounds of battle and the sight of dead bodies and blood were everywhere. That figure clad in Jonin clothes recalled the familiar feeling of the Third Great Ninja War and let out a deep sigh. Another war. Itakai, Sasuke, I wonder how they are doing. 888. Meanwhile Gaara stood atop a large stone column as his 4th Division Company stood below and awaited the enemy. Sand continued to blow through the air as Gaara turned his head, noticing something amiss. Utilizing his sand eye technique, he had it float in the direction where his sand detected the disturbance. Not too far off in the distance was the 2nd Sushikage Mu, who stopped walking and placed his hands on the ground, saying, Summoning Jutsu. 4 wooden coffins rose from the ground, revealing the 3rd Reikage, the 2nd Mitsukage Genjutsu, the 4th Kazekage Rosa, and the legendary Sanin Jiraiya. At this moment the 3rd Reikage opened his eyes in shock and said, Where am I? Genjutsu turned to look at her and Mu, saying, Well, if it isn't a gathering of old enemies. Genjutsu then turned to Rosa and Jiraiya with confusion. Well, but I don't know these 2 guys. Rosa looked at Genjutsu and replied, I am the 4th Kazekage, Rosa. I've heard of your exploits from my predecessors. Jiraiya also introduced himself. My name is Jiraiya. I was a student of the Third Hokage and named a legendary Sannin during the Third Great Ninja War. Genjutsu raised his non-existent eyebrows. Fourth Kazekage. So Tsunagakure has been pretty stable these past years. And legendary Sannin. What the heck is that? Mew ignored Genjutsu and said indifferently, this is the foul jutsu of the second Hokage. The dead are summoned back from the afterlife and then bound. You were summoned here by force. Jiraiya frowned in contemplation. It can't be, Orochimaru. Didn't Sasuke kill him? But he's the only other person I know who can perform this jutsu aside from the second Hokage. It doesn't make sense. Orochimaru. Who's that? Genjutsu asked. TSK. Orochimaru. That bastard. Rosa exclaimed as he recalled his death by Orochimaru's hands. Then it wasn't the second Hokage who summoned us? Mew inquired. Jiraiya nodded as he explained. The second Hokage has been dead for a while. Furthermore, he listed this jutsu as forbidden and elected not to use it anymore. At this moment a small floating eye hovered behind a rock as it observed the gathering of these 5 individuals. Gaara was shocked as he mumbled to himself, that is, the legendary Sannin Jiraiya. And among them is also Father. He raised his hand signaling a member of the intelligence unit to stand next to him and relay the information he just discovered back to headquarters. 888. Back at headquarters sat the 4th Raikage, the 5th Hokage Tsunade, and the 3rd Sashikage Onaki. One of the members from the intelligence division at headquarters spoke at this moment. Report from Gaara's 4th division. 5 enemies have appeared. They are the 2nd Sashikage Mew, the 2nd Mitsukage Genjutsu, the 3rd Raikage, the 4th Kazekage Rosa, and the legendary Sannin Jiraiya. What? Tsunade, and Onaki exclaimed in shock. Even my old man was revived. I said in disbelief. They were able to revive Jiraiya. Damn those bastards. Tsunade clenched her fist and gritted her teeth. Even Lord Mew was revived. This will be troublesome. Onaki remarked. At this moment Ao, the captain in charge of the sensory unit, widened his eyes in shock, exclaiming, this isn't good. Derue's 1st division will be facing many of the White Zetsu army and some powerful reanimated shinobi soon. Among those reanimated shinobi are Hyuga Hisashi, Kato Dan, Kakuzu, Zabuza, and Kaizame. The enemy's commando unit is also there and has Sasori and Deidara in it. They are currently bombing the area of the 1st division. A clenched his fist in frustration. Ugh. The 4th company is facing against previous Kage. The 1st company will be facing a 2-front battle against White Zetsu and reanimated shinobi while being pressured from bombs, and the 3rd company is even facing off against the previous 7 ninja swordsmen. It appears I may have to go to the battlefield myself. Shikaku stepped in at this moment and said, wait. He then continued, Lord Raikage, you are the supreme leader of the allied shinobi forces. The supreme leader must remain safe to give orders to the troops until the final stages of the war. That is your duty towards your charge. Let us first assess the situation. Kitsuchi's 2nd division is locked in a battle of attrition against the White Zetsu army right now. Kakashi's 3rd division is engaged in battle with the enemy, but they presently have the advantage. The 4th division under Gaara will be facing the previous Kage. Mifune's 5th division is free to roam and assist any division that needs it. Derue's 1st division will be facing off against the enemy soon by the sea, which is close to Kitsuchi's 2nd division. First, We'll have Mifun's 5th Division provide support for the 1st Division and have some of the 2nd Division also assist the 1st Division to completely crush the enemy by the sea. Meanwhile, Lord 3rd Hokage is also with the 5th Division. Let's inform Lord 3rd that he should go to provide backup for the 4th Division against the previous Kage, as the 4th Division also slowly make a retreat towards the 1st Division. By that time, if everything goes well, the 1st Division should be able to defeat the enemy and rush towards the retreating 4th Division to provide more assistance. Depending on the status of the 2nd Division at that time, we may deploy the 5th Division to assist either the 4th Division or the 2nd Division. What do you think, Lord Raikage? Pondered to himself for a moment. Will the 4th Division be okay during the retreat? Even if the 3rd Hokage Hiruzen goes to assist them, it is still 4 Kage and a legendary Sannin we're talking about. Onaki stood up at this moment and said, I will go and assist Gaara's 4th Division. The 2nd Sushikage is no ordinary shinobi. He can escape from sensory detection and can also use the Keki outer particle style. If Hiruzen assists the 4th Division and I go as well, not only can we buy some time for the 1st Division's assistance, but we may even be able to take down the enemy. I pondered once more before agreeing. Very well. You're the only one who can use the particle style to counter the 2nd Sushikage. With you as the 3rd Sushikage, Gaara, the 5th Kazekage, and Hiruzen the 3rd Hokage, the situation may be manageable. I'll leave immediately. Onaki replied as he jumped through the air and began flying towards Gaara's division at his fastest speed. Tsunade looked at Inoichi, who was in charge of intel, and said, Inoichi, relay to Lord 3rd Hokage that he needs to go assist the 4th Division as soon as possible. Yes. Inoichi replied. 888. At that moment Hiruzen received news of what happened and started rushing towards Gaara's 4th Division. He was extremely worried, anxious, and sad as his eyes started to water while thinking to himself, even Jiraiya. Not only was I forced to fight my pupil Orochimaru in the past, but now I must also face Jiraiya. Hiruzen had only just left the company of the 5th Division when he was forced to stop and dodge a barrage of shuriken aimed at him. Swish 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 swish. He quickly pulled out a kunai and deflected 2 shuriken that curved through the air aimed at his blind spot. Ting ting. At this moment a figure appeared on a tree branch not far from Hiruzen and said, You were still able to defend against an attack from your blind spot, Hiruzen. It's good to see that your battle experience hasn't dulled. Hiruzen's eyes widened in shock as his eyes watered once more. Looking at the man in front of him high on that branch made his heart beat faster as a myriad of emotions welled up inside him. Uchiha, Kigami. Hiruzen said as he wiped away the tears from his eyes. Kigami smiled at his old friend. Hello Hiruzen. It's been a long time. You've certainly gotten older, but I'd recognize you in a heartbeat. It appears I've been reanimated by Lord Second's forbidden jutsu. I'm surprised that someone other than Lord Second is able to use this technique. If I remember correctly, Lord Second died protecting you, Danza, Homura, Koharu, and I back then and named you as 3rd Hokage. Hiruzen smiled, remembering the time he and Kigami served together. Indeed. Since then a 4th Hokage and 5th Hokage have been named. Before they could continue their conversation any further, Kigami felt his personality being suppressed, so he quickly said one last sentence, Hiruzen. Please, stop me. I don't wish to hurt anyone. He quickly weaved the hand signs for the fire-style fireball jutsu whilst Hiruzen did the same. The two of them exhaled a gigantic ball of fire which scorched the surrounding forest. Kigami activated his Sharingan and jumped above, throwing out 3 kunai at Hiruzen, who parried the attack with 4 shuriken of his own. Hiruzen also weaved the signs for the Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu, causing his 4th shuriken to multiply into 10. Kigami formed the Tiger Hand sign and said, "Fire style art of the Fire Dragon Jutsu." 5 gigantic flaming dragon heads intercepted Hiruzen's shuriken and continued towards him. Hiruzen quickly formed the signs of tiger, snake, rat, snake, tiger and said, "Water style water wall jutsu." A wall of fierce water intercepted the fire ninjutsu as Hiruzen expertly backflipped, dodging a kunai thrown from Kigami at that moment. "To fight against an old comrade, I will make sure to stop you here and now, Kigami, so that you may return to peace," Hiruzen said in great sorrow to himself after exchanging several moves against Kigami. At this moment Hiruzen noticed something amiss and placed his hands together, saying, "Release." The genjutsu that Kigami had used was dispelled before it could take effect. Hiruzen narrowed his eyes as he dodged a punch and grappled Kigami's wrist, throwing him against a tree trunk. He then quickly summoned a Fuma Shuriken and threw it, splitting Kigami's body in half, momentarily immobilizing Kigami's reanimated form as paper began to fix his body. Hiruzen formed the signs of boar, dog, ram and said, "Earth-style mud trap jutsu." Immediately dark and murky mud appeared beneath Kigami's reforming body and covered it completely before hardening into solidified earth. He dashed forward and placed a powerful sealing tag on top, successfully sealing away the reanimated Kigami with a look of sadness on his face. He remained there in front of Kigami's sealed form for a few minutes before bowing and said, "Rest in peace, my old friend." Just as he was about to make his way towards the 4th division, he stopped in his tracks and quickly placed his hands together once more, shouting, "Release." Immediately the area around him blurred and faded away into nothing as the real forest he was in appeared. He quickly weaved his hand signs for the earth-style earth wall jutsu, effectively blocking a barrage of shuriken aimed straight at him. Sweat dripped off of Hiruzen's head as he thought, "I knew that it felt a bit too easy defeating Kigami." So he layered a genjutsu right after the first one I dispelled. "I really can't let my guard down against my old friend." He then re-engaged Kigami in a fierce battle. 888. Nightfall arrived as everyone in every battlefield became anxious and stressed. In some areas the battle raged on, in others the battle came to a halt. Yet in the 4th division neither side had made a move yet. It was also during this time that Naruto and Killer Bee had escaped from the giant turtle island where they were hidden away and proceeded to the various battlefields, while at the same time far away inside a secluded room back in Konoha, a figure groaned and sat up on the bed. He unwrapped the bandages around his eyes before slowly opening them, revealing the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. "So, this is the power of the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. I can feel Itakai's power flowing through me," Sasuke whispered to himself in the dark room illuminated by the moonlight. A note was left on his table as he picked it up and read the contents. "The 4th Great Ninja War. It seems Madara and Kabuto couldn't wait any longer to get their hands on the 9 tails and 8 tails. TSK. I still need to find Jago, Karen, and Sujitsu. It appears I missed out on a lot of things while I was acclimating to my new eyes." Sasuke looked out at the moon in the sky and thought of his older brother Itakai before picking up his sword and strapping it behind his waist. Stretching his arms and legs, he jumped out the window and dashed towards the forest. Just as he jumped on a tree branch, 3 figures dashed out in front of him. "Yo! Sasuke!" Sujitsu said. "Sasuke-kun!" Karen screamed in a fangirl tone of voice whilst fidgeting embarrassingly. Jago just nodded his head in acknowledgement. Sajuk widened his eyes in surprise. Sujitsu, Karen, Jago, you guys found me. Was that because of you, Karen? Karen's cheeks turned pink as she nodded her head and replied, ahem. Yes, Sajuk-kun. Your aura disappeared so suddenly back then, but we followed the chakra signatures of the Konoha shinobi in the vicinity, and when we got near Konoha I sensed your chakra again. We waited here on the outskirts of the village for you. We were so scared when that pain guy attacked the village. And then when you left the village you went along with some other guy. We couldn't find the right time to approach you until now. Sajuk just stared at the three of them for a moment before saying, I see. I was going to search for you three, but now that you're here it'll save me some time. Eh? Then do you still have somewhere you're going? Sujitsu asked. Sajuk remained silent for a moment as he looked at the three before him as the image of Naruto, Sakura, and Kakashi flashed past his mind. He recalled Kakashi's words of how Team 7 was waiting for his return as he clutched the three items in his pocket. A box of soldier pills, his old forehead protector, and Izaya's special kunai. Do you know about the Fourth Great Ninja War? Sajuk asked. Oh. Yeah, we should stay away from that. It's getting dangerous out there, you know. Sujitsu chimed in quickly. Sajuk shook his head. I'm going to the battlefield. What? Sujitsu shouted in shock as it was the last kind of place he wanted to be in. Jago nodded and said, I'll follow where you go, Sajuk. Sajuk turned to look at Konoha once more before dashing off into the night, followed by Jago, Karen, and a grumbling Sujitsu. Crash. Boom. Several walls of a dark cavern broke and shattered as a dark Tengu chased after me, rolling and tumbling uncontrollably through the air. Goo. I groaned, coughing up some blood as I crashed into the fifth wall that finally stopped my momentum. Damn Muramasa. After all this time he's still as strong as ever. Every time I'm able to separate him from his katana and create an opportunity to seriously injure him, he's able to counter with some weird technique of his, or he's able to materialize his katana in time to counter me. I mentally cursed as I lay in a rubble of stone, dust, and blood. TSK. I clicked my tongue and clutched my right arm, taking a moment to sense all the areas on my body where Muramasa inured me with his katana. The wounds won't stop bleeding after he cut me with his blade, even with the regenerative abilities of my body. That blade of his is really strange. Every cut and wound on my body that was inflicted by something other than his blade eventually stops bleeding, but wounds inflicted by that blade won't stop bleeding. My body's regenerative powers are enough to replenish my blood loss for now, but it won't do me any good if I keep bleeding non-stop and my chakra depletes to zero. Swish. Muramasa jumped down from the ceiling with his katana in hand as he aimed to pierce it through my heart. Once again I flew to a different kunai, avoiding imminent death, causing a scowl to appear on Muramasa's face. I took note of his growing frustration and anger as our battle continued to rage on. Muramasa clenched his katana in his hands as he once again missed his killing blow, contemplating in frustration. Never once had he had this much trouble catching and killing someone he deemed his prey. It irritated him greatly that this one insect of a shinobi was taking so long to kill. Although he liked to play with his food, that was only up until a certain point, and only if it was under the condition that he had absolute control. However, this game of trying to catch and kill a mere shinobi who had less than a third of his total chakra was getting out of hand. I merely stared at the back of Muramasa as blood dripped down my mouth while sporting a sorry look with cuts, wounds, bruises, and injuries all over my body. Just as I was racking my brain for another plan, I heard a voice speak in my head. "You there, kid? Hey." I widened my eyes and looked around, unable to find the source of the voice. Then I heard it again. "Kid. To survive this long against that spirit, you aren't half bad. But if you keep this up, you'll end up dying. How about I lend you a hand?" Before I could respond, Muramasa swung his katana, forcing me to teleport to another kunai, once again dodging one of his many failed lethal blows from our drawn-out battle. I continued to avoid Muramasa's onslaught while doing my best to split my focus between staying alive and listening to the voice in my head as I responded, "Who are you? Where are you? And how can you help? If you've got an idea, I'll take it. I'm running out of ideas myself." That mysterious and ancient voice spoke again. "Amen. You would do well to listen to me. However, if I am to help you, then you must also help me." Bang! Boom! I dodged two perilous strikes to my life as I simply nodded. "Speak your mind." Once again that ancient voice spoke. "Muramasa is a spirit weapon. The katana and sheath are his true vessel. His soul is bound to it, that is why he can materialize the blade to his hand. He is only using that Tengu called Sujobo as his temporary host so he can move around freely. Although that Tengu is truly dead, his body is acting like the house for Muramasa's spirit. In order to defeat him, you must expel his spirit from the body and back into the katana and sheath. Then you must seal his soul and suppress it in both the katana and sheath so he will not be able to reign free nor exert his malicious influence." Thwack! I swung a powerful kick at Muramasa's head, successfully sending him flying across the cave as I responded to that mysterious voice, "All right. Easier said than done. How exactly do I expel his spirit from the body? And how do I seal his spirit into the sheath and katana? I'm pretty good with fuinjutsu, but even I don't know a seal strong enough to contain this guy." The voice responded once more, "I know. I will help you expel Muramasa's spirit from that Tengu's body and force it back into the katana and sheath. The sealing technique you need to use is called the Four Symbols Fiend Seal. I will transmit to you how to activate the technique. Use it to seal Muramasa's spirit back into the weapon. Allure him to my location." I quickly nodded in agreement. "All right. Where do I find you and what did you need me to help you with?" "Near the first cavern hall there are 3 tunnels. Take the one on the left. There you will find an old lamp lit with crimson fire. Remove the seal on the lamp and I will be able to aid you. However, my power is limited. Over time I have been greatly weakened and once I leave the lamp I will need another place to dwell. I've been watching you this entire time and have noticed that your body is quite interesting. You wield the ocular powers of the Sharingan and your physical body has great vitality. The way you can help me is to seal my spirit into your body utilizing the 4 Symbols Divine Seal. With your body it may be able to help me regain my powers and survive instead of dying off." I was incredibly stunned at this moment after hearing what this mysterious voice just said. Bash! Bang! Boom! I dodged Muramasa's onslaught, moving to the left, then right, then left again and started making my way towards the lamp's location, recalling the memory of an old worn-out scroll I found in Danza's hideout about the Uzumaki clan. "It can't be, can it?" The voice said to look for a lamp that contained fire, and this voice wants to teach me how to perform the 4 Symbols Divine Seal and the 4 Symbols Fiend Seal. Didn't that old scroll I found mention an old lamp that contained the eternal flame and that it contained the secrets to the 4 symbols sealing jutsu? Boom! I did a quick backflip, dodging another lethal strike to my head as I slid across the floor and into the designated location that the voice instructed me to go. Immediately I spotted an old and ancient lamp with a crimson flame inside pulsing like a warm heartbeat. Crack. Bang. The entire left tunnel collapsed, revealing Muramasa's furious and monstrous-looking form reeking of sinister bloodlust. I didn't waste another second tearing off the seal on the old lamp. The moment the seal was removed, space and time in the surrounding region instantly froze as I felt a ripple in my mind. My heart rate quickened and my eyes widened in shock as images and information appeared in my head. The way to perform the 4 symbols Fiend Seal and the 4 symbols Divine Seal was instantly imprinted in my memory as time and space began to move once more. Muramasa screeched and swung down with his blade, only to widen his eyes in shock as a bright crimson light blinded him and filled the entire region with a majestic aura that ascended into the skies. His spirit was ripped out from within Sujobo's body and forced back into the katana and sheath. I quickly cut my arm, smearing some blood on 24 different kunai as I slightly wavered and fought to remain conscious from the blood loss all at once. I arranged the kunai in a pattern of 4x4x4x12 which surrounded the katana and sheath and formed the signs of dog, ox, boar, tiger, ox, boar, tiger, dog, boar, tiger, ox, dog, tiger, dog, ox, and boar, clapping my hands at the end saying, "Sealing Jutsu 4 symbols Fiend Seal." A giant purple light erupted from my hands and a giant seal connecting the blood-stained kunai appeared surrounding the katana and sheath as all the murderous aura in the region was reabsorbed into the weapon before the seal shrunk, leaving a mark on both the katana and the sheath. Fwish! The purple light slowly dissipated, leaving only the light of a giant flame floating in midair as it spoke in this moment. Impressive. Even though you have only just acquired the knowledge of how to perform the seal, to actually be successful on your first try is commendable. It appears my gamble has paid off in choosing you. You cannot leave this island with your current strength as the seals and barriers placed around it are much too powerful. It will take you at least 3 years to break through. I will do you one more favor and destroy this barrier so you can leave. However, it will drain my power once more. After I destroy the barrier, use the 4 symbols Divine Seal I taught you to seal me inside of you immediately. I will be completely drained of strength and have to recuperate. I won't be able to converse with you. For last few things I will tell you before I break this barrier is that the spirit you fought is actually a physical spirit weapon named Muramasa, which is also that katana you see before you. Place a 4 symbols Divine Seal on it and it will slowly siphon off his power into yours, allowing you to wield him freely, though it may be a few years before you are able to. Do not draw that blade until enough of your aura is mixed with it, which will let you have control over its power. The second thing I will tell you is that the tunnel to the right contains another spirit weapon. A spirit weapon that was sealed away by Muramasa. Remove the seal and bind it to your soul with blood and chakra. You should be able to wield its power without much harm. I think you will find it useful. Lastly, when I am sealed inside of you, do not be alarmed. Your body's self-regenerative power and ability to recover chakra will be slower than normal, as I will slowly siphon off those powers to revitalize my spirit. Take care to not be damaged too horribly. Now, are you prepared? I took a moment to consider what this crimson flame said before nodding my head. I am ready. Do you have a name? The flame simply said, "You may call me Senko." In the next moment a blinding crimson light flashed throughout the entire island as a loud cry of a majestic bird resounded from the mountains before a shattering sound was heard signaling the destruction of the barrier. I quickly smeared blood on my hands and weaved the signs of snake, bird, dragon, tiger, bird, dragon, tiger, snake, dragon, tiger, snake, bird, tiger, snake, bird, dragon, and clapped my hands at the end saying, Sealing Jutsu 4 Symbols Divine Seal. My hands glowed with a golden light and a large circular seal appeared beneath a small crimson flame that floated in front of me before it was absorbed into the seal and imprinted itself on my abdomen. I immediately gritted my teeth as I groaned, "Ku. What the heck is this flame? I can feel an incredible amount of power from it, but at the same time I can feel my body's regenerative properties slow down. My body feels incredibly hot but in a comfortable way. It almost feels like I could walk through lava and be completely fine. But I probably shouldn't try that, I silently mused to myself. The feeling lasted for a few more seconds before the golden light surrounding the cavern dissipated and everything returned to normal. Phew! I breathed out a sigh of relief. It's finally over. That was rough. The prep for the 4 Symbols Divine Seal is a lot less than the 4 Symbols Fiend Seal. I wonder why. I took a moment to observe my condition and smiled mockingly to myself. At least all my wounds aren't bleeding profusely anymore. Probably cause Muramasa has been sealed away, so the special ability of his blade to cause my wounds to bleed non-stop is rendered obsolete. But now my wounds are going to take a lot longer to heal. Normally my body would be healing them all right now, except nothing is happening. And my chakra is getting pretty low. I touched my right eye and frowned as I realized that although my wounds stopped bleeding, my Sharingan was still destroyed. Well, I was debating how I should utilize Shisei's eye, but I guess now is as good a time as any to test out the limits of this body of mine. Taking a seat on the floor, I took out a red scroll, unfurling it, and formed the hand sign seal of confrontation. Unseal. Poof. A cloud of white smoke appeared and cleared away, revealing a liquid container with a Sharingan inside. Now I wonder how this will go. Non-Uchihas are supposedly unable to awaken the Mangekyo. Since I was able to, my body must have at least become somewhat similar enough to that of an Uchiha's. So will Shisei's Mangekyo Sharingan remain as is, or will my body that's good at harmonizing bloodlines be able to assimilate Shisei's DNA from his eye and evolve it to an eternal Mangekyo Sharingan? Using the medical ninjutsu I learned during my years as an Anbu, I dipped my hands in the jar and held Shisei's Sharingan. With glowing green hands I transplanted Shisei's Sharingan in my right eye and instantly felt a burning sensation in my head. At this moment Senko, who was just sealed inside of me, took note of what I was doing and exerted a little bit of his power into my right eye, causing a crimson light to shine in the dark cave before everything returned to normal. I clutched my eye and felt a pounding headache rage on inside me for a few minutes before calming down. All right, I'm sure Senko just did something, but I have no clue what. Seems like my right eye is undergoing some sort of change. Doesn't seem like I can use it for a while. I looked down at my abdomen where the seal was placed and said, "Oi, Senko. What did you just do? I thought you were going to sleep right away or something." I waited a few moments but no response came from him. Letting out a sigh, I shrugged my shoulders in defeat. I'm not sure if sealing a foreign spirit in my own body was a great idea or not, but under the circumstances I didn't have much of a choice. And I couldn't exactly try to trick Senko and go back on my word, since he's definitely an existence that's stronger than even Muramasa, I mentally noted. I took out another blindfold and tied it around my eyes before looking down at the weapon lying on the ground. It was a violet-colored sheath and the katana itself was a purple blade that had a violet-colored hilt with black diamond patterns. So this is Muramasa. I walked over and picked up both the katana and sheath. The symbol of the fiend seal was left imprinted on both the sheath and the base of the blade. After putting the katana back in the scabbard, I performed the 4 symbols divine seal once more as Senko had instructed, causing another sealing mark to appear on both the sheath and the katana. I widened my eyes in shock and wariness as I felt my soul link up with Muramasa, causing small amounts of dark, sinister, and murderous chakra to mix with my own. Is this going to be okay? I took a moment to observe my condition after the linkage and heaved a sigh of relief after feeling my chakra slowly assimilate Muramasa's dark aura. Strapping Muramasa to the left side of my waist, I followed Senko's instructions and entered the right tunnel. After reaching the end, I took note of a blue-tinted katana with a black and blue hilt mounted on the wall with intricate sealing tags strewn throughout the room. Above the weapon was a name carved on the wall that read Masa Mune. Masa Mune. Senko said this one might be helpful to me, as long as it doesn't go wild like Muramasa. I whispered softly to myself with a bit of hesitation. After a few more moments of quiet contemplation, I decided to go with it and removed the weakest part of the seals after studying the formation for a bit. CORSSSSHHH. After the successful removal of the first, the rest of the sealing tags lit on fire and burnt away, leaving only Masa Mune. A bright blue and silver light fluttered around the weapon, releasing an aura that felt like being embraced in the protective care of one's mother before dissipating. Well, that was certainly different than Muramasa. I walked forward and dripped some blood along with infusing my chakra into the black and blue weapon. Just as the red drops of blood infused with my chakra touched the blade, the blue-silver light erupted once more and covered my body before the light disappeared along with the weapon. It's gone. I closed my eyes and focused within myself as I sensed a sleeping spirit dwell inside. I wonder if this is what Itakai feels with his spirit weapons. Or maybe he doesn't feel anything. Honestly, it's a mystery to me how Itakai got his hands on his spirit weapons. From my past life, I remember people thought that Itakai awakened them with his Susanoo. If that's the case, then his Susanoo was a natural-born monster. Itakai's spirit weapons were incredibly powerful. I wonder if my Susanoo will be able to wield Masa Mune and whether it has some unique skills like Itakai's Totsuka blade. I took one more look around, finding nothing but the carnage left behind from my battle against Muramasa. Letting out a deep breath, I finally walked out of that damn hellhole and stood on the still barren mountainside. Hopefully I didn't miss much. Muramasa said that time and space were distorted here. It felt like I was only gone for a couple of days. No way the Great Ninja War started or anything like that yet, right? I said to myself, taking a glance at the sky. 888. A warm wind blew past a large open desert with rock formations erected in various areas as Gaara stood atop a rock column alongside Onaki, who turned to Gaara and said, "With the area Hiruzen was in, he should have arrived by now. It appears he has been delayed. We can't afford to wait much longer. The previous Kij and Jiraiya are closing in on us. Kij, let you and I make a preemptive strike from the distance and see how they respond." Gaara turned to Onaki and said, "Very well. Be careful." Onaki smirked. "Heh. I may be old, but I'm quite experienced. Allow me to show you that I have not forsaken myself." Gaara nodded and lifted his hands, causing a large amount of sand to rise in the air, moving it towards the previous Kij and Jiraiya. The reanimated Kij and Jiraiya stopped in their tracks at this moment as they saw the gigantic wave of sand coming towards them. Genjutsu was the first to speak. "Oh! Look at that! What a large amount of sand!" Rosa furrowed his brow as he thought about Shukaku. He quickly placed his hands on the ground and said, "Gold dust. Immediately a large amount of golden sand erupted from the ground and crashed into the oncoming wave of regular sand, forcing it to fall down right before them. As he turned his head upward, he widened his eyes in surprise, seeing Gaara instead of the Shukaku. Gaara floated atop a sand cloud, looking down as he said, "Hello, father." Rosa frowned. "Where is the One-Tails?" "The One-Tails is no longer with me. It has been gone for a long time now." Gaara lifted up his hands to ensnare the Forkage and Jiraiya with sand, only for Mew and Jiraiya to successfully dodge. Onaki snuck up behind all of them and said, "Particle-style atomic dismantling jutsu." Mew turned, utilizing the same jutsu, while Rosa released Gaara's entrapment, allowing the previous Kage to move out of the way from the collision of both techniques. A giant cavity was created in a sphere of bright white light before dissipating. Rosa and Gaara continued their attack on one another as Rosa asked, "What do you mean Shukaku is gone? I am no longer a Jinchuriki. The Akatsuki extracted the One-Tails from me and I had died. It was Granny Kyo and my friends that saved my life." "Friends? You have friends?" Rosa asked in disbelief. Gaara stared at his father for a moment as he thought about his past. "Father, even though you tried to kill me 6 times, and each time my fear and hatred of you grew, I no longer hate you. I can understand why you did it. I am now the 5th Kazekage. It is a leader's duty to eliminate threats against one's village. We must protect it." Rosa stared in shock. You are the Kazekage." Onaki, floating aside Gaara, chimed in, "That's not all. He's also the commander-in-chief of the Allied Shinobi Forces main battle regiment. Despite his age, he's not only Kage, he also has the respect of all the other Kage." Mew looked on with interest and commented, "No wonder. I thought I sensed a mix of different chakra from multiple villages. Imagine that. Shinobi forming an alliance." Jiraiya smiled and said, "Allied Shinobi Forces. I wish I was alive to see the day that something as incredible as that was formed. It is unfortunate that I have to witness such a great event as a reanimated Shinobi on the opposite side. Who was it that reanimated us? I thought that Sasuke had killed Orochimaru." Gaara turned to Jiraiya, answering, "It was his subordinate Kabuto. He learned how to use the reanimation jutsu and summoned you all back from the dead. He is working with the Akatsuki. The Akatsuki's leader is Uchiha Madara, and he has declared the 4th Great Ninja War. We Shinobi of the 5 great nations have banded together to prevent Madara from ending the world." The previous Kage and Jiraiya immediately widened their eyes in shock at this revelation. "Madara? He isn't dead yet?" Mew said in disbelief. "Goo, I had a feeling something drastic was going to happen in the world." Jiraiya mumbled. The 3rd Raikage spoke at this moment, "If Uchiha Madara is truly still alive, then quickly seal us away. We don't want to be pawns for his plans. We don't have control over our own bodies and are set to counter the enemy automatically. Be prepared." "Understood," Gaara said as he unleashed a giant wave of sand once more, whilst Rosa countered with a wave of his own gold dust. Onaki finally gave the signal for the rest of the 4th Division to engage in battle. Jiraiya furrowed his brow as he, and Genjutsu rushed towards the 4th Division Shinobi. Mew and Onaki also began engaging in a battle of their own. "Damn this jutsu. I don't have control over my own body. After all that time searching for the answer to peace, I am being used as a pawn to go against the very peace I fought for. Naruto, please stop me." Jiraiya lamented aloud as he jumped in the air and clapped his hands, saying, "Barrier probe." Immediately an invisible sphere rippled out from his body, erecting a sensing barrier around him, allowing him to detect anyone who gets near him from all directions. He then formed the signs of boar, tiger and said, Earth-style dark swamp jutsu. At this moment the 4th Division split its members into 3 units to face Genjutsu, and Jiraiya. Many of those facing Jiraiya had fallen prey to his dark swamp jutsu and started sinking deep into the murky, sticky mud. Ah! Help! Don't come any closer! Stop! Screams of panic and fear were heard all around from all 3 units. Jiraiya dodged multiple ninja tools aimed at him, including those from his blind spot due to his erected barrier warning him in time. He scowled at his own body for reacting in time and shouted, There is a barrier around me. Either find a way to remove my barrier or simply overwhelm me with attacks from all sides. At this moment he felt his body acting on its own again and shouted, Anyone, quick! Block with water style. He then formed the signs of rat, ox, dog, horse, monkey, boar, tiger and shouted, Fire style great fire destruction jutsu. He took a deep breath and exhaled an incredibly powerful and large flame from his mouth while several allied shinobis banded together and said, Water style water bullet jutsu. KRSSSHHH. Steam and smoke filled the air as several water bullets collided with Jiraiya's fire ninjutsu. Pwoosh! At this moment Gaara had managed to successfully seal away his father the 4th Kazekage, Rosa, and joined up with the 3 units that were currently engaging Jiraiya, Genjutsu, and O. He frowned as he took note of the casualties. Genjutsu had summoned some sort of giant clam and was releasing a genjutsu which confused the unit engaging him. The 3rd Reikage was devastating the unit facing him as his speed was too fast and his power and defense too great, whilst the unit facing Jiraiya suffered just as many casualties against Jiraiya's mastery over many different jutsus. Onaki returned to Gaara's side at this moment and said, Lord Mu has used one of his jutsus to turn invisible in order to hide from detection. Until he's found, we need to deal with these other 3 as quickly as possible. Where the heck is the 3rd Hokage? Gaara nodded and said, I will support all 3 units to minimize casualties. You should pick a unit to help and quickly try to seal away the reanimated shinobi. Hopefully we buy enough time for the 3rd Hokage to join us. He must have been held up with a battle of his own. Amen. We can only do that for now. Onaki agreed. The moon rose in the air as the darkness of the night blanketed the world in a cold shadow. A few days had already passed since the beginning of the war. Each battlefield struggling to gain the upper hand. The casualties continued to climb higher and higher. All members of the Shinobi Alliance were currently on edge, and the decreased visibility of the night didn't help to alleviate their symptoms one bit. It was also at this time of the night that 2 of the most highly skilled and powerful reanimated Shinobi dashed through the forest in complete silence. They made absolutely no noise as they traveled to their targeted destination. The first to speak was the reanimated shinobi who had white hair and was clad in blue armor. I never imagined that I would succumb to my own jutsu. The first time was Orochimaru's doing. Now someone else has gained control of this technique. If there is one thing I regret during the time I was still alive, it would be the creation of this jutsu. The other reanimated shinobi simply sighed as he said, "We cannot undo what has already been done, Lord Second Hokage. We can only hope that someone will be able to find this jutsu's caster and undo the technique. I have a bad feeling about the destination this jutsu's caster is making us head towards." Tobirama frowned as well as he too had a bad feeling. "You know who I am, but I do not know who you are. You possess the Sharingan, so you are from the Uchiha clan. What is your name? I am Uchiha Itachi. Tobirama nodded in acknowledgement. Itachi. You seem quite young. Since I don't know who you are, you must have been born after my time. How is the Uchiha clan doing these days? Itachi's facial expression faltered a bit at the question. After a momentary pause he replied, they are all dead, at least most of them. Tobirama widened his eyes in complete shock. What do you mean all dead? Don't tell me that the clan tried to do something drastic prompting the village to take them out. TCH, I knew something like this might have happened. Itachi let out a sigh in lament. I was the one to kill them. What? You? But aren't you a member of the Uchiha clan? Why did you end up killing your own clan members? I was given an ultimatum from Danza. Back then the third Hokage relinquished his position to the fourth Hokage. During that time something happened and the Nine Tails was unleashed upon the village. The fourth sacrificed his life to protect the village and sealed away the Nine Tails. The third took up his position again as Hokage, and after investigating the matter the village discovered that the Nine Tails' attack on the village was under the control of the Sharingan. They ostracized the Uchiha clan in suspicion and stripped away any influence the clan had in the village. This resulted in angering the clan, and over time they planned a coup d'état. In order to prevent any bloodshed in the village and to prevent the possibility of another war breaking out, I accepted Danza's ultimatum and massacred the Uchiha clan, save for my innocent little brother. I chose to bear this burden for the clan and the village to uphold the honor of the Uchiha name and to prevent unnecessary bloodshed. I wished for my little brother to grow up and kill me, which would be the end of that matter. Tobirama had a pensive look on his face. I see. How admirable of you. Despite being an Uchiha clan member, you are a true leaf shinobi. Although I am technically dead and my words hold no particular weight now, as the second Hokage I thank you for preventing a calamitous event from befalling the leaf. Was it discovered who controlled the Nine Tails with the Sharingan? Itachi didn't care for Tobirama's words of thanks and completely ignored his sympathy. The one who controlled the Nine Tails to attack the village was Madara. What? Impossible. My brother killed him. Itachi shook his head as he replied, the reason we are being used for war with the five great nations is because of Madara's instigation. With your ability to use the Flying Thunder God and my prowess in Genjutsu, I have a feeling that we're about to do something drastic. We're getting close to our destination. Tobirama frowned once more, unsure of how to feel about everything as he sensed a large building with people inside up ahead. This isn't good. That must be the headquarters of the Shinobi Alliance. Don't tell me the caster of this jutsu is going to have us assassinate the ones in command of this war. Itachi frowned as well. It seems that may be the case. Swoosh. They continued on their way to silently infiltrate the Shinobi Alliance headquarters, which at this moment had a frustrated-looking and Tsunade seated at the main table along with Shikaku as main strategist, Ao as the sensor unit captain, and Inoichi as the information unit captain. Tsunade spoke up to break the silent tension in the room. Inoichi, relay to us the current state of the battlefields. Yes. Inoichi replied as he focused to relay the relevant information. The 1st Division under Captain Derue is under heavy pressure. They are fighting a night battle against the White Zetsus, who can somehow completely transform themselves to look like members of the Alliance. They are also being bombarded by powerful bombs from Deidara in the sky and are having trouble facing off against Sasori and his 100 puppets technique. They are also having great trouble at trying to deal with Sasori's poison techniques. Hyuga Hayashi was heavily injured by the reanimated Hyuga Hisashi. The Sound 4 ninja were resurrected in their location but have been dealt with and sealed away. The problem is that they are by the ocean, which gives an advantage to the reanimated Kaizame and Zabuza. Even with the help of Mifune 5th Division and half of Captain Kitsuchi's 2nd Division, they are sustaining heavy casualties. The 2nd Division under Captain Kitsuchi is also suffering losses as they are currently only at half strength. Not only are they under attack from the most amount of white Zetsus, but they are also being attacked by several powerful reanimated shinobi such as Hanza of the Salamander, Kyo of Tsunegakyo, Kanan of Akatsuki, and Fu and Torun, who were subordinates under Danza. Many of the shinobi in the 2nd Division have fallen prey to Hanza's poison as well as Kyo's use of poison. In the 3rd Division under Captain Kakashi, they are struggling to maintain their location. They have successfully sealed away Pakura of the Scorch style, Guri of the Explosion style, and 3 of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the Mist, but the other 4 are much more difficult to deal with as they have their swords with them. Another problem is that Might Dewey and Uchiha Fugaku have been reanimated. With his undying body, Might Dewey's inexhaustible use of his 8 inner gates technique is devastating the 3rd Division. Luckily he has not yet unleashed the 8th gate. Uchiha Fugaku is also an extreme problem as his prowess with his Sharingan and use of Genjutsu in combination with Dewey's Taijutsu is currently too difficult for the 3rd Division to counter. The only reason they are currently holding out is thanks to Kakashi's many battle strategies, Sakura's healing prowess, and Haku and Gai's ability to stalemate Fugaku and Dewey. I don't know how much longer they will be able to keep this up though. As for the 4th Division, they have retreated as far as they could. If they keep retreating, they will bring too much chaos to the 1st Division, so they elected to stand their ground and fight. They have successfully sealed away the 4th Kazekage, but the 2nd Mitsukage, 2nd Sushikage, 3rd Reikage, and Jiraiya are dealing massive damage and causing many casualties to the 4th Division. And you already know that the 5th Division is providing assistance for the 1st Division. Lord Third seems to be locked in a fierce battle as well, which is why he has not yet arrived at the 4th Division. Naruto and Killer Bee, with both of your consent, are traveling right now to reach the other battlefields. Tsunade, A's advisor Mabi, and Shikaku clenched their fists in frustration after hearing the situation of all the battlefields. Shikaku racked his brain for a solution. He thought that with half the 2nd Division and the support of the 5th Division they could help the 1st Division overwhelm the enemy quickly, but reality proved different. There were too many variables to account for, and Kabuto and Madara seemed to be just as cunning of strategists. The biggest issue was that the Alliance didn't have enough information going into the war to prepare better countermeasures against the enemy. Just as Shikaku was going to speak up, Ao, captain of the sensory unit, shouted, "Oh no! I sense 2 incredibly powerful signatures heading our way." Tsunade stood up in alarm and shouted, "Who?" Before Ao could give an answer, a loud bang sound could be heard as dust and debris filtered out of the hallway into the large room of the HQ. 2 shadowy figures appeared in the cloud of smoke before revealing them as Tobirama and Itakai. Everyone was completely shocked. Uchiha Itakai. And the 2nd Hokage Tobirama. Shikaku shouted in alarm. A frowned and immediately cloaked himself in his lightning armor, shouting, "How did you get here so quickly?" Tobirama sighed with an apologetic look and said, "In the past, when I met the 2nd Reikage for meetings, we once held discussions in this room. For precautionary measures, I once placed a marker for my Flying Thunder God Jutsu in a well-concealed spot in the previous room. That is how we arrived so quickly." Before anyone could say or do anything else, Itachi reacted and said, "Run." Without control of their reanimated bodies, Tobirama formed the tiger sign and said, "Genjutsu Infinite Darkness." The room was immediately filled in complete darkness, blocking out all sight. However, Itachi remembered the position of all the people in the room and expertly threw out a barrage of shuriken at their locations. PSH 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 PSH. Blood splattered and screams were let out in the darkness, only for no one being able to see or do anything. Tsunade began to feel a bit of panic inside, but with their years of experience they immediately calmed down and were able to sense the danger of the shuriken, effectively dodging just in time. With both of them calmed down, they took a moment to remember their relative position in the room and dashed backwards, throwing out a powerful punch behind them. Boom! Immediately both of their fists made contact with the wall behind them and created a hole leading to the world outside and away from the area of influence of Tobirama's genjutsu. Tobirama watched as Tsunade escaped the influence of his genjutsu and nodded in approval. Excellent choice. This genjutsu is a bit different from other genjutsus as it only affects those who enter its sphere of influence. As long as you leave the range of this technique, you won't be affected. Itachi stood off to the side with a look of sorrow as he stared at the dead body of Inoichi beneath him. "I'm sorry. This wretched jutsu has forced me to do something against my will." Tobirama walked over to Itachi also with a look of sorrow on his face. "It is as you said. This is war. We can only hope for someone to find the caster of the jutsu and release this technique." Itachi simply replied with a sorrowful voice, "To think that you would be the one to cast genjutsu instead of me." Tobirama looked around at the dead bodies before saying, "My brother and I developed this genjutsu to help fight against the Uchiha clan back in the old days. Anyways, it appears that with the Reikage and Tsunade escaping, our task is complete." He then placed his hands on Itachi's shoulder, teleporting them both away. Tsunade had both fallen all the way down to the ground after they punched a hole in the wall to escape. They looked up and noticed the dark sphere of Tobirama's genjutsu disappear, prompting them to return to the room. Tsunade quickly summoned Katsuyu and had her slugs attach themselves to the bodies of everyone in the room. After a few seconds of silence, she clenched her fists and screamed, "Ah!" She punched out at the wall to her right, completely destroying the entire right half infrastructure. I was also furious and shouted in rage and anger as he smashed the table in front of him. Both kids stood there in complete silence as they took a moment to grieve the dead. Inoichi, dead. Shikaku, dead. Ao, dead. Mabi, dead. Everyone in the room had died save for the two kids. Akatsuki. Madara. Curse you! I shouted at the top of his lungs, bashing the room to pieces to vent his anger. Tsunade scowled as the look on her face was the fiercest expression she had ever put on and shouted, "Enough! Reikage, you and I are the only ones left. I swear I will end Madara and this damn war. Until then you and I must keep it together. We need to relay what happened here to the Kazekage, Sashikage, and Lord Third Hokage as well as the other division captains. We need to move our HQ and discuss a plan of action. Immediately." I huffed and panted in extreme anger as he attempted to calm down his rage, whilst Tsunade turned to Katsuyu's clones in the room and said, "Katsuyu, I know you have a small clone by Sakura's side. Relay to her that we need their intelligence unit to connect to the Reikage and myself so we can quickly come up with a way to reach the others." Katsuyu nodded in sadness and replied, "Yes, Lady Tsunade. I will have my clone do so right away." 888. Swish. Swish. Tobirama and Itachi dashed through the dark forest as the moon lit up the dark sky in what would have been a nice peaceful night had they both not have committed such a cruel act a few moments ago. It wasn't long before they both stopped in front of a forest clearing by a sparkling blue river and approached a figure sitting down on a boulder nearby. Itachi walked over and said, "Nagato." Nagato turned to see both Tobirama and Itachi walk out from the dark forest. "Itachi, you've returned. It seems that the caster of this jutsu will pair us up once more." Itachi nodded as he had a look of sorrow on his face. Nagato, taking note of Itachi's downcast expression, commented, "The jutsu caster must have had you do something painful." Itachi let out a sigh as his body involuntarily supported Nagato's frame before they turned around to face Tobirama. "Since the two of you are traveling together, it appears that the caster has his own plans for where my destination will be," Tobirama commented. Without anyone saying another word, they dashed off in separate directions, parting ways. Tobirama headed towards the direction of Kakashi's 3rd Division as Itachi and Nagato followed the river to some unknown destination. They continued to follow the river all night, walking along the dirt path on the side in complete silence as morning soon rolled around the corner. Itachi was the first to break the silence. "We've been walking for quite a while now. We must be nearing our opponents soon." Nagato glanced at Itachi. "I sense a similar chakra signature to your own. In fact, I sense 2 of them." Itachi widened his eyes in surprise and asked, "What do you mean 2? "I sense one on the battlefield in the far distance and one that is approaching us." Nagato frowned as he also sensed Jiraiya's chakra, whilst Itachi furrowed his brow, lost in his thoughts. "One is undoubtedly Sasuke. Could it be Kabuto's reanimated father?" Itachi noticed Nagato's change in facial expression and asked, "Are they close?" Nagato smiled as he stared off in the distance. "This feeling is familiar. There are many others heading in this direction. 6 individuals to be exact. One of them also has a similar chakra to yours, Itachi." The sounds of footsteps approaching became louder and louder until 6 figures came to a complete stop. Naruto and Killer Bee stood in front of Nagato and Itachi, while Sasuke, Jugo, Sujitsu, and Karen stood behind Nagato and Itachi. Naruto took note of the reanimated shinobi in front of him, exclaiming in shock, "Uchiha Itachi." Nagato. Sasuke was the next to exclaim in shock, "Big brother." They also caught a glimpse of each other at this moment, nodding in acknowledgement, but were too shocked at the appearance of the 2 reanimated shinobi in front of them to exchange any words of pleasantries. Nagato took a good look at Naruto and said, "Well, I never imagined that I'd be forced to fight you again, Naruto." Itachi glanced behind him, saying something similar. "Sasuke, I also didn't think I'd be forced to face you." Nagato continued speaking at this moment. "You've changed a bit, Naruto." Naruto nodded with a smile. "Yeah, this is the 9 Tails chakra cloak. I call it my chakra mode. I'm in control of the 9 Tails power now." Nagato smiled as he felt the immense power and warm aura coming off from him. "I see. You have changed. Not just the power you possess, but rather your facial expression. Your resolve is strong now. Have you finally overcome hatred, Naruto?" With great confidence, Naruto replied, "Yeah. I thought about a lot of things after we fought. As my senior, you taught me about pain. Izaya helped me confirm my resolve, and the training I did at the Waterfall of Truth with B, getting to meet both my mom and my dad when learning to use the 9 Tails power. I have all of you to thank for where I am at now." Nagato smiled once more as he listened to Naruto speak of his experiences. I see. Then I'm glad. Naruto, there is one other thing I must tell you. What is it? Nagato frowned before speaking. It appears that the caster of the reanimation has also revived Jiraiya-sensei. Naruto widened his eyes in shock as his heartbeat quickened. So even Jiraiya-sensei was. He whispered to himself. Before Nagato could say anything, Naruto looked up with confidence and said, "Don't worry. I've learned a lot from everyone. I will confront Jiraiya-sensei so that he can finally rest in peace. That means I will help you too, Nagato. In the end you were able to let go of your hatred in front of Izaya and I will stop you here so you don't have to spread the hatred that you worked so hard to let go of." Nagato's facial expression softened as he realized that even though Naruto learned of Jiraiya-sensei's resurrection, he didn't let the hatred consume him. Sasuke spoke up in sorrow at this moment and said, "Itakai. So you were also reanimated. Even after all the precautions taken to protect your body." Itakai remained silent for a moment before responding, "So Izaya was able to bring back my body and keep it protected. Does this mean you've awakened the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan?" Sasuke's eyelid twitched when he heard what Itakai said, as it meant Izaya was truly speaking the truth back then. "So it's true then? That you agreed to let Izaya protect your body? That he convinced you to tell me the truth?" Nagato raised his eyes in surprise listening to their conversation. "Truth? What truth, Itakai?" Itakai shook his head, ignoring Nagato's question. "Sasuke, it's true. But don't say any more about me to the village. In the end it was a decision that I chose. I would like to keep it that way. You know the truth. So does Izaya. That is enough for me. You are my pride and my one and only younger brother. I have already left everything I had for you. I'm currently being controlled by the enemy and they have already forced me to perform horrible acts of war against my wishes. I will entrust you to stop me and seal me away." Sasuke had a downcast look on his face as he stared at Itakai before nodding his head. Itakai noticed Sasuke's downcast look and smiled at his little brother. "Sasuke, you've grown. It is because I have entrusted everything to you that I must tell you this. Most likely, father has been reanimated as well." "What?" Sasuke exclaimed in shock. Before Itakai could explain more, he shouted, "Fire-style fireball jutsu." Nagato also placed his hands out in front of him and said, "Almighty push." A giant ball of fire shot out at Sasuke while Naruto and B were pushed extremely far away. Sasuke quickly formed the hand signs for the same fire-style technique and shouted, "Jugo, Karen, Sujitsu, stay out of this." Fire-style fireball jutsu. Two giant balls of fire crashed into each other as Jugo, Karen, and Sujitsu dashed in the far back, watching the confrontation of both sides. Nagato quickly formed the summoning hand signs and said, "Summoning jutsu." Poof! The giant-billed beak bird carried Nagato on its head as a giant dog, ox, rhino, crustacean, chameleon, and 3 centipedes appeared. Whoosh! Sasuke and Itakai exchanged several moves of taijutsu while Sasuke asked, "What do you mean father was reanimated?" Itakai blocked a punch from Sasuke and threw a kick to Sasuke's head as he replied, "Nagato sensed 2 chakra signatures similar to my own. One was you. My guess is that the other was father. He was probably reanimated and is fighting on a battlefield somewhere. Quickly seal me away and go stop father." Sasuke pulled out his sword and swung while Itakai pulled out a kunai and deflected the sword. Ting! Zwing! Cling! Fling! "Why did you kill the clan?" I've been thinking about everything you did the entire time. Everything you did it for the village. Just what is a village? Why would you kill the entire clan for the village? What does it mean? Sajuk asked with mixed emotions as he continued to clash with Itakai, whose facial expression softened at Sajuk's question while he continued to dodge, parry, and strike. A village. To understand what a village is, you have to understand its history. Sajuk, before the concept of a village there was only clans and unending wars. Back in those days was an era known as the Warring States. People barely lived past their 30s. Each clan fought for their own benefit without a care for anything or anyone else. This led to constant chaos. Even children would not be spared the taste of war. Clans would be hired to fight battles to help expand the lands of small countries. In the end, it didn't matter to the clan who they were hired to kill, and it didn't matter who they sent from the clan to do the job. All that mattered back then was that the job was done. There was no stability or rules, only bloodshed. The two major clans of the past were the Uchiha and the Senju. These two clans had clashed for decades, with both sides losing many of their brothers, sisters, fathers, mothers, and children during their ensuing war. Eventually both sides became weary of all the fighting and deaths, and one day the future first Hokage, Senju Hashirama, offered the Uchiha clan a peace offering. They accepted the peace offering and the fighting finally stopped. Madara, the head of the Uchiha clan at the time, as well as Hashirama, the head of the Senju clan, decided to band together and form the village hidden in the leaves. The reason is because they wanted the fighting to stop. They no longer wished to war against one another and no longer wished to see their own clan members, which included the children, to suffer at the hands of war. Finally, peace and stability was brought about in the world. With the Uchiha and Senju clan banding together, their strength was unmatched, and this allowed for the children of the clans to grow up and finally experience a life other than that of bloodshed. Children were able to learn what joy was. They were able to experience the joys of playing in the water during summer, the joy of playing in the snow during winter. They came to know a bit of the light that exists in the world other than having to experience the wrenching pain of poison from an enemy or the sharp pain from the enemy's knife. In time, many other clans saw the peace and power the village hidden in the leaves brought about by the union of the Senju and the Uchiha. Some joined the village while other clans formed their own. The life expectancy of not only Shinobi, but of other people had increased due to a more stable foundation. A system was created, and that was the system of the Shinobi villages. Villages are not perfect. I understand that there are many flaws that exist in the system of a Shinobi village, but even if there are flaws and even if villages had continued to war against one another, it was no longer the burden of a single clan, and that allowed for many members of each clan to continue to live on. Not only this, when many people of different backgrounds come together, then greater things can be accomplished rather than being on their own. For instance, the growth of an economy, of education, of a home, of entertainment, of music, of art, and many more. In a village, there are things that tie people together that go beyond just a clan. Having common interests with others in the subjects I mentioned earlier. There are also bonds that you forge with others that can tie people together. There is the stability of a home, a land, a country, a family, the company of friends, children, and many things that are more important than just a clan. A clan is only a name that one carries with them. It has its own rules and regulations and restrictions. A clan is only the root, it is not the part that sprouts and blooms. A village is formed of many clans, therefore it has many roots. However, when these clans join together, they create something meaningful. They create a place that one can call home. a place where one does not need to be bound by the rigid rules of a clan. They no longer need to be completely tied down to only one stagnant place and have the freedom to explore and experience things that were unavailable to them before. That is a village, Sajuk. That is why I had chosen to remove our clan. One clan alone does not have the right to choose how a village is run. Even if the clan was temporarily ostracized, they turned to violence too quickly for the answer and became too lost in their emotions and sense of superiority. Our clan had become too short-sighted and would risk the lives of innocent people just to fulfill their own motives. Not only would this weaken the village and cost the lives of many innocent people, but it would also allow outsiders who wished for the downfall of the village to act and potentially wipe out not only the other clans, but perhaps the village itself. There was the potential for the instigation of another great war. In order to prevent that from happening, I chose exile and to bear the burden of the clan. The system of the Shinobi village is not perfect, but it is something worth fighting for that is greater than just a clan. A village is progress from just a clan, and I'm sure in the future that there will be progress from that. Sajuk's expression softened at Itakai's explanation and reasons and backflipped away from Itakai's reach as he closed his eyes for a moment to let everything sink in. He recalled the faces of Naruto, Sakura, Kakashi, and Izaya. Recalled the memories of his old missions and the amusing stupidity of Naruto. The very affectionate Sakura. The always late Kakashi. The calm and mysterious Izaya. He recalled the feeling of what bonds were as the memory of the Chunin exams resurfaced in his mind. Back then he had risked his life to save Sakura and Naruto from Orochimaru in the Forest of Death. He recalled the look of relief and joy on Team 7's faces when he returned to Konoha after his fight with Itakai. And he felt the box of Sakura's soldier pills, his old forehead protector given to him by Naruto, and Izaya's special kunai stored away by his side at this moment. He let out a deep breath and finally opened his eyes, revealing the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. I see. Perhaps you are right. A village isn't perfect. It isn't without its flaws, but it does seem to be progress from that of a clan. And I suppose there is progress even now from that of a village. In this war the 5 great nations and villages have banded together as one into the allied Shinobi force to face off against Madara. They were able to put aside their differences to work together. Whether they will remain that way after the war is unpredictable, but I suppose it remains a fact that they have banded together here and now, and that can count as progress from a village to just Shinobi. Sajuk raised his sword in front of him as he looked at Itakai with a look of great sorrow. Big brother, I will uphold the honor of the clan, I will stop you here and now, and I will go and stop father as well. Itakai smiled at Sajuk as a feeling of warmth and pride filled his soul. Forgive me, Sajuk. I'm counting on you. At the same time that Itakai and Sajuk were engaged in combat, Sujitsu, Karen, and Jago fought against Nagato's Rinnegan summons, whilst Nagato himself engaged in combat with Naruto and B. Boom. Swish. Clank. Lariat. B shouted as he successfully struck Nagato off of his giant drilled beak bird and down towards the forest. However, B was shocked as his chakra was being drained by Nagato. Nagato's hair color changed from ash white to red as his complexion became much better. Before B could disengage, Nagato placed his palm on his shoulder and said, "Almighty push." A powerful gravitational force thrusted B straight down into the ground, creating a large crater from the impact. Whoosh! Naruto jumped down towards Nagato with an axe kick from above, only for a tongue to shoot out of nowhere and ensnare him. Goo! It's his damn invisible chameleon summon. Naruto shouted as he struggled to escape out of its grasp. Nagato arrived before him and placed his hands on Naruto's chest saying, "Human path." As he pulled his hands away from Naruto, a translucent blue and white aura emerged from Naruto's body, extracting his soul. Greatly alarmed, Naruto grabbed onto the aura being pulled out of him and shouted, "Nagato! Oi! What the heck is this technique? I don't remember you having something like this. Oi! Can you hear me?" Naruto frowned as he stared at Nagato. Nagato could only shake his head and said, "I'm sorry, Naruto. My body is restricting me from telling you about my abilities. It appears the caster of the reanimation doesn't wish to suppress my personality yet, but he's restricting what I can reveal." Naruto gritted his teeth in frustration. Damn it, what do I do? I'm losing strength as he's pulling this thing out of me. I know ninjutsu doesn't work, but I can't escape his grasp. Nagato raised his left hand and said, "Naruto path." A giant head with Rinnegan eyes rose from the ground not far from him and opened its mouth as he slowly walked towards it while pulling on Naruto's soul. Recovering from his earlier clash with Nagato, jumped from the sky and struck down at him, only to be caught in several mechanized arms. What the hell? This guy is strong. He's got a bunch of weird techniques, yo. B said as he struggled in Nagato's grasp. At this moment Sasuke shouted, "Susanoo!" A large purple arrow shot forth towards Nagato, prompting him to stick his hands out at his side and said, "Almighty push." The powerful force knocked the arrow aside, letting Sasuke use this moment to have one of his Susanoo's arms chop downwards at Nagato. This forced Nagato to release his hold on Naruto's soul and jump backwards with B in his arms to avoid being crushed. However, this was also enough time for Naruto to kill the chameleon holding him and create a chakra arm that grabbed B, wrestling him away from Nagato's grasp. Fwish fwish fwish. Sasuke, Naruto, and B grouped up with their backs against the others as Sasuke commented, "Hey, I can't believe you got caught in something like that, Naruto." Naruto smirked. "Oi, I was just warming up dat bayo, but thanks, Sasuke." B furrowed his brow as he said, "What the hell, yo? These guys are strong as heck, yo. What should we do then? They won't stay down unless we can seal them. TSK. I don't know any jutsu to seal them. Do you, Sasuke?" Naruto asked. Sasuke frowned. "I don't either." Just as they were all racking their brains, Nagato released a black mass of gravitational energy into the air, causing everything in the vicinity to be sucked in towards it. Immediately Naruto and Sasuke had a sense of déjà vu as they remembered how Izaya instructed them to defeat this technique. Naruto quickly shouted, "B. Use your most powerful long-range attack and shoot it upwards. Sasuke and I will do the same. It's how we defeated the technique last time, Datbayo." B nodded as he semi-transformed into the 8 tails and created a tailed beast bomb, whilst Naruto created a raisin shuriken and Sasuke activated his Susanoo using his Yasekai Magatama beads. Boom! Fwish! A powerful force was generated from the blast of all 3 techniques, effectively destroying Nagato's jutsu, creating a giant plume of dust and debris that flew in every direction. At this moment Itakai utilized his Susanoo's Totsuka blade and stabbed at the position where Sasuke was, only to find that not only Sasuke, but Naruto and Killer B had disappeared. He quickly raised the Yata mirror of his Susanoo behind him just in time to block a barrage of 30 kunai. The dust and debris finally cleared, revealing Sasuke, Naruto, B, and one other person standing in front of them. A man whose clothes were torn, ripped, and shredded in multiple areas. A man who had multiple bloodstains all over his body. a man donned with the striking features of snow-white hair and a black blindfold over his eyes. Izaya! Everyone exclaimed at the same time. Itachi widened his eyes as he turned to Nagato, who was now by his side, and said, "You also know Izaya?" Nagato nodded his head. "I do. He was the one who showed me that there could be a different path to peace and the one to shed light on the errors of the peace I attempted to create." "I see. So he was able to help you as well, Nagato?" Itachi said softly. Sasuke looked at Izaya's battered form and commented, "I know you said you were going to a potentially dangerous place, but where the hell did you go to be in such a sorry state?" Naruto had a confused expression as he commented, Izaya, are you okay? You don't look so well, Datbeo." I simply smirked at hearing their comments. Let's just say that I had a rough time, but in the end it was handled. I took note of Itachi and Nagato nodding my head, acknowledging their presence. Itachi. Nagato. I'd like to chat with you both a bit longer, if only it were under different circumstances. Apparently I missed quite a lot of things while I was on my excursion. MN. Itachi and Nagato nodded. The war began a few days ago. And I see you're still wearing your blindfold. Itachi commented. I silently brought my hands up behind my head and unfurled my blindfold, keeping my right eye shut as it still needed time to assimilate with my body, and replied, "Itachi, you are someone who I greatly admire and respect, and also one of the few who know my secret. It would be a dishonor to face you without revealing this." I furrowed my brow and continued, "But what do you mean that the war began a few days ago? Do you really mean that?" As I expected, everyone ignored my comment about the war and were instead shocked to see me reveal my left eye as a Sharingan, except for Itachi. Sasuke was the first to speak in complete shock. Sharingan? Why do you have a Sharingan?" Without taking my eye off of Itachi and Nagato, I responded as best as I could. I don't think I have much time to explain given the situation, but, in short, I was an experiment of Orochimaru's. Abandoned when I was 5. Ended up in the leaf. Met with Itachi. You know the rest. We can talk all you want later. First, let's seal away Itachi and Nagato. B. Provide support. I'll perform the seal. Sasuke, Naruto, hold on to one of my special kunai and engage Itachi and Nagato in combat, getting as close as you can to them. Also, is it true that it's been a few days since the war started? I took note of Naruto and Sasuke's complex expressions, knowing that they were probably struggling to rein in their emotions of shock in order to focus on the current, more pressing task at hand. Eventually they both nodded along with B as they replied, "All right. We'll do as you suggested." And yes, the war already started a few days ago. That's it for this video, guys. Hope you like the video. Like, share and subscribe the channel. Also make sure you give me your recommendation in the comment section down below. Thank for watching.